Call, please.
Commissioner Smith? Here. Commissioner Mum? Here. Commissioner Roth? Here. Commissioner Pauly? Here. And Mayor Neely?
Here. Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to have a presentation update from Clackamas County Fire District 1 with Chief Fred Carlton coming forward. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Neely, members of council. We try and get in at least once a year to see you formally and provide you a very brief district update. I know you have a full agenda tonight, so I will make my comments brief. A few things that the fire district's been working on as of late. We've completed a facility master plan, so as many agencies do, we did sort of a top-down inventory of all of our assets to include administration and training center and fire stations to really look at what are the future needs of the fire district. We're putting together a plan so we can be more transparent if we ever need to go out and look for support to enhance the services that we provide. September is Emergency Preparedness Month, so that's fast approaching. That's about 3.5 weeks away. We'll be having our board sign a proclamation supporting September being Emergency Preparedness Month. And this year we're focusing on being ready and being prepared. And as you know, I think we've talked about before, we're very active with the citizens of Oregon City in our Community Emergency Response Team and their training. Also, our emergency manager, Greg Ramirez, is out talking to businesses about continuity of operations and how do you sustain after any type of disruption in service. It certainly doesn't have to be an earthquake. It could be many other localized disasters that put a business out of service. So we're excited to be out in the community in September. And then on the heels of that, we will be entering October, which will be Fire Prevention Month, as it is each year, and the focus this year is on smoke alarms. So we preach smoke alarms quite heavily at the fire district. We think it's a very affordable means to provide early egress to a family who may have a fire in their home. Hands-only CPR, another very easy, life-saving piece of training that can be taught. We set out in 2013 to try and teach 10,000 community members through our 8th grade students at North Clackamas and Oregon City school districts. Well, in June we completed that, and we tallied it up, and we taught over 11,000 students, friends, and family members, all initiated from our 8th grade students. So we're extremely proud of that. And I've asked our staff, well, what do you plan for 2014 and 15? So we'll see if we can top that. July 1, 2014 marked really a historical day for the fire district. We entered into a 5-year contract for service with Boring Fire District number 59. We've been working closely with Boring for the last 3 years. So what that means for the fire district is we're going to grow by about 20,000 residents and 60 square miles, but it will bring more resources into the fire district, which certainly helps Oregon City. We were successful in November 2013 in acquiring a $1.9 million federally funded SAFER grant for staffing, and we are excited to say that May 6th of 2014 we increased the staffing at the South End Fire Station, Station 17, and we moved from that 2-person squad type unit to a fully staffed paramedic fire engine. So we're very excited about that. Just 2 things. One today is, as you've seen in the news, the state of Oregon continues to be compromised by wildfire. We had a request this afternoon to send our firefighting resources to the community of Mosier. The Rowena fire is blowing up, and our thoughts and prayers are with the firefighters and families in the Dalles, but we sent a number of firefighting resources from this county over to Mosier this afternoon. And lastly, just congratulations on your National Night Out events last night. I heard it was wonderful up at the Mount Pleasant site. And thank you to Chief Band, who gave me a tour of that site last week. And I saw some plans today for what the vision is, and it looks absolutely spectacular. So anything that I can answer from the fire district? Yes, ma'am.
I have some questions. You just said you just completed an assessment of all your facilities. Was that for sustainability? So how are you fixed for sustainability in aftermath of any kind of a disaster?
So that was two main focuses when we looked at our facilities. One, under sustainability, seismic upgrades and improvements. We do have a few community fire stations that are not seismically fit, so we need to address that. And the other focus we had is on that emergency backup power. So we want to make sure that all of our emergency generators are state-of-the-art and really ready to operate that community fire station, or in many cases, that community fire station which also acts as that emergency operations center for our communities. So that was really our focus, is just like you said, making sure that we are sustainable and fit and prepared for that very, very significant incident.
Right. And then two others are just kind of, are you going to be doing 30 days, 30 ways in September?
In September, I'll have to check with our emergency manager. He has more plans than I can ever describe.
And then I was just this week apprised of an application for smartphones, which is called PulsePoint.
PulsePoint. Yes,
You were
so
on it. I'm so pleased.
if you'd like the 20-second overview of PulsePoint.
Yes, please. Well, if you want to use an app here, I got it.
PulsePoint PulsePoint 911 is a free app that you can download on your smartphone, and it notifies you of a number of events, and one is if somebody goes into sudden cardiac arrest. So back in May of 2014, there was an off-duty firefighter at a local fitness center in Clackamas who was on the treadmill. His smartphone lit up and said cardiac arrest. He pushed the button and it showed the map, and the map was outside the front doors of the fitness center.
Wow.
He got off the treadmill, and certainly he is medically trained, but he ran downstairs, came across a security guard who called 911. They started hands-only CPR. Two of our engine companies arrived along with American Medical Response, transported the 57-year-old patient, and we are excited to say that we had the patient back at our July board meeting, and he is recovering. So PulsePoint is a way to activate citizens in the event of emergency that is close to you. It pinpoints your location and the location of the emergency.
Wow. Very cool. The other thing that's really wonderful is it also shows you AEDs, and there's an application on here that shows you how to do CPR and gives you the timing for the CPR.
Yes, it does give you.
Really,
it
really
really
good.
does everything. We're trying to find one that you can just lay on someone's chest.
But I was so excited because
We would like to see that.
you know,
So if-
I work for the city of Portland. They don't have it yet, and I was so excited to see Clackamas.
So we're going to officially roll out PulsePoint in our endorsement in September.
Great.
Again, if you want to follow Clackamas Fire District Number 1, you can see all of the emergencies that we respond to.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a couple. One coming back to the seismic conditions. I know when we got the bond to upgrade the 7th Street station that there was seismic efforts taking place. Is that sufficient in today's requirements of fire stations?
Well, the standards are going to change in a number of years, and we're talking about looking at an engineering firm to come in and do that sort of next level of assessment. I think it's fairly premature to speak on the health of those facilities without having an engineering firm do that. We're just going through since we're made up of 11 consolidations and mergers, we're looking at all of our facilities and trying to go back through all the plans to see what was initially built to the standard, what standard was it built to, and then what has been retrofitted.
The other question, I had a neighbor of mine came up and had noticed what appeared to be some kind of construction crew using a fire hydrant. Are other entities able to use your fire hydrants, and what's the process of getting the permission if they are?
So those are the city's fire hydrants.
Those are the city's fire
Those are the
hydrants?
city's fire hydrants.
Okay.
So
So
it
we've
would-
got to ask the right person, it's not you.
I think the right person in this room could answer that, but those are the city-owned and maintained fire hydrants, which we access, and also in many communities, they do allow contractors, typically it's metered water, and then fire hydrants you see in many complexes, industrial complexes that are painted red, those are private fire hydrants that are maintained by that owner or that complex.
Oh, that's good to know. I did not know that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your
Thank you.
hard work.
Thank you.
The next thing is one of these more serious proclamations I'm about to read, announcing the results of a coin toss reenactment. Whereas the Oregon Territory's Portland was originally known as the Clearing or Stumptown, indicating why there was a clearing, and whereas Francis Pettygrove and Asa Lovejoy jointly held a land claim at Stumptown, and whereas these two land claim holders wanted to incorporate their developing township into a city, And whereas Mr. Pettigrove wanted Stumptown named Portland after the city in Maine from whence he came, and whereas Mr. Lovejoy wanted Stumptown named Boston after the city in Massachusetts from which he came, and whereas there was a coin toss in 1845 in the territorial capital, Oregon City, determined which would be the name of Stumptown, and whereas Pettigrove won 2 out of 3 coin tosses, resulting in Stumptown being named Portland, and whereas Main Street, Oregon City reenacted the coin toss on the evening of July 26, 2014, the date of the city's annual First City celebration, and whereas online poll determined that heads would be Portland, and whereas Oregon State Representative Brent Barton from Oregon City's Mayor Doug Neely, and Commissioner Kathy Roth each flipped a penny, and whereas the coin toss resulted in 2 heads and 1 tail, now I, therefore, Doug Neely, Mayor of Oregon City, do proclaim Stumptown will continue to be named Portland until Oregon City has another reenactment of the Pettigrove Lovejoy coin toss, and I'll be signing this accordion. And actually, there were some images I had intended to have on this proclamation, apparently didn't come through, but there we have a coin from that era, is that correct?
Yeah, this is actually my penny that was in the Ermatinger house, which, by the way, where is the whereas referring to the Ermatinger house on this thing?
Well,
I were missing a whereas, I think.
Well, yes, but...
Anyway, this is not the actual penny. The penny supposedly that was used for the actual coin toss is at the Oregon Historical Museum in downtown Portland, but this is a penny from the time period, about a quarter size, that would have been used for the coin toss.
I didn't write that, but Commissioner Smith would tell you that he feels that it's the only house in which the coin toss could probably have occurred. And I don't know if it's actually mentioned specifically. We're in the process. If you've been by the library anytime recently, you see the Ermatinger house is the little white house across the street from the Carnegie. The Ermatinger house is the oldest house in Oregon City, built prior to the McLaughlin house. The date on the house is 1845, but we think that the house was in process, of being built prior to that. So when I went to do it, it's always been said in Oregon City that that's the house where the coin toss took place. In doing research at the Oregon Historical Society, going down there, actually when I went down there, I went unannounced and just went to start asking people at the museum, where did the coin toss take place, just to see what answers I'd get. Everyone said Oregon City. And it's been documented that the coin toss took place in Oregon City. So the question then is, if it took place in Oregon City, where and in what house? There was no government building, so you think that there would be, most of the city's business took place, or the territory business took place in homes. So you have the McLaughlin house, the Barclay house, or the Ermatinger house. And so there's various references to dinner parties, and there's one reference that I found that specifically said the Wilsons' house. Well, the Wilsons' house just so happens in my mind to be the Ermatinger house, because Ermatinger house lived in Oregon City a very short time, and then the Ermatinger house became the Wilsons' rooming house, where they would rent rooms out in Oregon City. And it was really, one of the only houses here. So if the coin toss took place in a house in Oregon City, that's the house that took place.
The one.
And,
I like that logic.
So that's as close as we can get. And so I think the Historical Society has also acknowledged that in fact I wasn't at the First City Celebration, so I think there was a coin there. And was it the coin from the museum, or
No.
it wasn't?
Doug's pennies.
It wasn't there.
There was
Okay.
pennies.
Pennies, they tried to get a hold of one, but
Okay.
it was supposed to have come, but it did not.
But they've at least acknowledged that history and
Well, I'm free, of course. I had some images of those coins on this proclamation, apparently did not come through. When we do that, with the consent of the council, I will add another whereas to it. I'll be happy to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we'll go on to our next item on our agenda. Announcement, the announcement of 2014 Preservation Month Photo Contest winners, and I'm pretty sure that's Christine.
Thank you, Mayor Neely, Commissioners. Once again, we're here to
Exciting.
announce the winners of our 2014 Preservation Month Photo Contest. And this year, the theme for the National Trust Preservation Month was Embark. What was it? It was Embark,
I have to get the cheat
Inspire.
sheet out here for.
Embark, Inspire, and Engage. And so we try to use programs like the photo contest to really try to engage people, both children's, teens, and adults. And so I've always been really excited when this time of the year comes around, and really excited about our collaboration with Clackamas County Historical Society. And we have 3 winners, and one of our winners is here tonight.
Yay.
I also want to again thank Citizens Bank for sponsoring the contest prizes. We really appreciate our sponsors every year, and this year was Citizens Bank. And I will pass it over to Karen Morey, representing the Historical Society.
All right, and I'd also like to thank Old Oregon Photos, John Platt. He did the printing of the winning photographs as his sponsorship. The adult winner is a gentleman named Chip Greendale, who's not able to be with us tonight.
Nice.
Oh, look at how
Nice.
beautiful is that?
That's great. Yeah, turn around there, yeah.
The Vanna behind my head here.
Vanna.
Will it stop
great.
and see it too? Or Tony will. And then the teen winner, who is 17 years old and a student at Oregon City High School, Max Patrick Shearer, has some neat effects that he did.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
He
nice.
captured the elevator at night.
Very nice.
Now that does look like an extraterrestrial.
It does. Actually, last night during the coloring contest at National Night Out, one young lady wanted to put the elevator in the background of what she had colored, and she was asking what it looked like. And I commented it looked like a tube with a U.S. Enterprise on top. And her brother said, yeah. So that helped her.
Well, we that are fans of the Men in Black. True.
True. All right, and then our youth winner, who is 9 years old, is Jonah Sostrin. And if Jonah would come up and the mayor would come down.
I'll be more than happy to.
Let's see his picture. Oh, nice.
Very nice.
That's very
Very
nice.
cool.
Nice shot of the kayak.
Yeah, that's great.
In the river.
What's your name, Jonathan?
Jonah.
Last name?
Sostrom.
Salstrom?
Sostrom.
Salstrom. Did I get it right?
Ask
Did I get it right? Good enough, Mayor. That's not a good enough answer. Repeat it now. Try one more time.
Sostrin.
Sostrin?
Sostrin.
Sostrin, is that right? Okay. Well, I can. If I get it wrong, I hate to hear good enough. It's your name, and somebody better say it right. How long have you been doing photography?
I really don't know.
Most of their life that you remember? Long time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's good. He said since 2012, so 2 or 3 years now.
Congratulations.
That's great. And I take it you get the encouragement from your parents. That usually is what happens when a person's got a gift. That's tremendous. Congratulations.
I appreciate this night. Thank you.
Yes, I'll present the check to you. I don't think I have to sign. I don't have to sign it. I don't have to sign it. Thank you very much. Great job.
Oh, yes, and just a reminder, the 3 winners will be on display at the Museum of the Oregon Territory for the next year in our gift shop. And the judging process of this, Christina, thank goodness, takes all of the applicants. She emails out just the photograph, no identifying information. She just lets us know which group the photograph is in. And members of the Historic Review Board and representatives of Clackamas County Historical Society vote and choose the winners. So I want to announce that there's no nepotism involved, but however, I got notified last night that Carol Pauley's children have been winners. And last night I find out that Jonah is Eric's nephew. So
There you go.
You know, staff and commissioners, thank you very much for your support of our photo contest, and we'll be back next May.
I would point out that there's now dubious concerns about one of our staff members and commissioners, but there's no been allegations about the mayor. I just want to point that out. Karen, just for a moment, by any chance are any of the other recipients here?
No, the other two were not able to be here. However, I would like to note that you do not have to be a resident of Oregon City to enter the photo contest. So next year, I'll suggest that Sierra gets a photograph who is his granddaughter.
There you go.
That'll be okay because I won't be in office.
That's right.
With that, I've got an unpleasant announcement. We have a Father's Heart presentation from Terry Gant, excuse me. Either yesterday evening or this morning, he had a heart attack, and I think it's Marty. Yeah, and she called me up. She's not able to be here, obviously, and it was serious, but she didn't indicate anything about the outcome. I think he might have been out of surgery at the time she called me, but I am not certain, and I'm very sorry to announce that. Now is and we'll surely have her back at a time when she's able to. What I wanted to comment on was before we take citizens' comments, and I'm sure there's several people that have signed up to speak on the Father's Heart. Is that correct, Nancy?
17.
Yes, there's many.
Okay. We'll take any comments that come forward. We have 3 minutes per person, but I wanted to, before we open up the citizens' comment, I want to assure people of something, because I have one that we'll have put into the record that was written. I'll go ahead and put forward the name. The person that put it forward is Benita, and I have Tyanler. Does anybody know her? I assume she was not able to make it. She's not a resident of Oregon City, and the reason I say it, when people come forward, you give your name and whether or not you're a resident of Oregon City. We don't need addresses. I'll have this put into the record, but I wanted to say something here because I think there's a misperception of what the city, that no action is intended part of the city. I hope before you make your decision concerning them, meaning Father's Heart, you will drive down there, go inside, introduce yourself, and see the place to be as incredible as I and many others see it. First of all, several of us have been down there. I've been down there on a numerous occasion. But the point is, the city is not going to do anything to Father's Heart, and I want to make that clear. Father's Heart is there. It's permitted under zoning. There was going to be no attempt to force in any way Father's Heart from that location. And if people are coming here with that concern, it is not a concern. What happens, and this always happens, what has happened is with Father's Heart coming, clientele, the number of people that are basically homeless has increased in Oregon City. We've had complaints. I want to point out that our police department, our officers communicate on a regular basis with Terry Hart. Where we have occasions where there are problems, Terry Hart has addressed them. And so, Terry Gant has addressed them. And I want to alleviate any concerns that anybody has that the city is going to somehow push Father's Heart out of there. There's no intention to do so. With that, I'll open citizens' comments. And I'm going to ask you a favor. We have 3 minutes. We have 17. That's a long period of time. If some of you, after you heard some of the presentations, and I'm going to ask the Father's Heart ones to all come forward first, if I may. It probably move things along a bit if at one point maybe some of you would withdraw and you could have a point to stand up to indicate that you're speaking on behalf of Father's Heart. We might do that right now, and then we'll start going through the name list. So anybody that's here that wishes to stand up indicating a support for Father's Heart and its location, please do so we really get a feeling for how many people are here for that purpose. I appreciate that, a numerous number. Thank you. With that, Jim McIntosh and Robin Schmidt, would you please come forward? And if you hear something said and you don't feel you have anything else to contribute when I read your name, you can simply state that others have covered what you wanted to say. Thank you. In the order in which I gave them, Jim McIntosh first.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and City Council. You took away a lot of what I had to say. Thank you, though, for doing that. But what I'd like to do is just indicate what you probably already know, that you have in your city one of the most successful and beneficial homeless shelters, bar none. If you go down to Burnside, which I'm sure you've all seen, they pale in comparison to the Father's Heart ministry that they're doing there and helping the homeless. In fact, what I would suggest that you do or consider doing is, instead of maybe perceiving it as a blight or a nuisance and a hindrance to citizens that come through, visitors or tourists, that you would in fact embrace the Father's Heart and really see that service that they're providing the homeless in Oregon City as a bragging right that you take on. That in fact you tell your citizens about it. You put it in your tourist brochures that we have one of the finest homeless shelters in the state of Oregon and perhaps the United States, and have them visit it. I don't know how many of you have been through it personally and gone and seen what they've done, but a lot of people ought to tour it and see it and get ideas of what Terry and her husband and the incredible volunteer staff that work for the Father's Heart have done. So I just want to encourage you to continue to be proud of what the Father's Heart is doing. Allow them to continue doing what they're doing. Show them off. Why? Because it's the right thing to do.
Thank
So
you very
enough
much.
said. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you. It's simply a requirement for our record. When you, after you state your name, whether or not you're a resident in Oregon City.
I'm sorry. I'm Jim McIntosh, and I'm from Damascus.
That's fine. You don't have to even say where you're from.
All right.
Not being Oregon.
All
But you
right.
can say where you're from.
Sure.
Go ahead.
It's a good city, just like Oregon City.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Some
Thank
people
you.
are arguing whether it should be a city or
For the
not,
time
but it's a good place.
We could actually bring that up.
I remember going to the, I think it was the 100th anniversary of statehood in Damascus, where you had the 100-day candle burning there,
Right.
which Portland could not do. They couldn't build a 100-day candle, and you all did. I remember
Yeah.
that.
All right. Thank you.
Robin Schmidt.
My name is Robin Schmidt, and I am not a resident of Oregon City. I've had the privilege of being the receptionist at the Father's Heart Street Ministry for the last 14 months, and I'd just like to share some of my observations since coming to the Father's Heart. The things that attracted me to volunteering at the Father's Heart was the dignity and caring of everyone that comes through our doors. Priority was to greet the people, many times with hugs, making sure they receive a meal and rest if they like. And then when they are comfortable, we see how we can make their day better than before they came through our doors. Sometimes that looks like pointing people to getting on long waiting lists to housing, or thanking a veteran for serving our country and getting him in touch with a veteran service worker. Sometimes that looks like encouraging a young man to go to school by helping him with bus fare and books. Sometimes it looks like giving a place to sleep during the day because there's no place to lay their head at night. I've seen some transformed from being filthy, from living under bridges, to receiving a shower, clean clothes, a haircut, and dignity restored when they had lost all hope and purpose. And sometimes it looks like a brother reuniting with a brother that he has been searching for many decades. I've listened to many stories of the homeless over the last 14 months, and I've learned a great deal. One of those things that I've learned is that many of us that have homes are quick to assume that if someone is homeless, that they're a danger to the community, and homelessness is not a danger to a community. The mentally ill that I see walking the streets are in danger. Those with addictions can pose a danger when they're under the influence of drugs to themselves as well as others. But being homeless in itself is not a crime. It's not a danger to a community. What about the many veterans that I see come through the doors at the Father's Heart? They lay down their lives for us, and now they find themselves homeless. What about the mentally ill, some even homeless, and yet are so vulnerable and are on the streets? Those that have lost their jobs, have no addictions, and aren't able to get off the streets because the programs they see for the most part are recovering programs, and even then, there's a waiting list for months. What do they do in the meantime? Being homeless is a need and not a crime. How the needs of the homeless are addressed is a reflection of the character of a community. It takes citizens coming together, taking responsibility for the weak and the vulnerable in their community by doing whatever it takes to bring relief to this real need, because they can, because it is the right thing to do. It takes a community that sees individuals that are worth the dignity that you and I take for granted every day, and it takes a community that is willing to say that one day any of us could face homelessness, and I hope there will be someone to help me if I would ever face that day. It takes neighbors volunteering to do what they can to address homelessness instead of wanting the homelessness to just go away. When I think of the many volunteers that support the Father's Heart with their time, financial donations, clothing, food, maintenance, service, bringing sack lunches, preparing hot meals, it shows me that it can be addressed, and it just takes people willing to do what they can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate both of you staying pretty much within the time limit. I don't think I mentioned we try to keep our discussions to 3 minutes. Now, when Terry comes back, she's invited to speak for several minutes. But if you could keep it down to 3 minutes, I appreciate it, and you've done pretty well on that. Now, we have these lights. It's green, yellow, caution light. Red means you've reached your time, but it hasn't gone over time much at all. Robin Schmidt. That was Robin Schmidt. William Hooker and Carl Rainbow. Would you please come forward, please? Robin Schmidt from Oregon City?
I'm Carl Rainbow.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, William Hooker is who I wanted to have first. Yeah, go ahead. You can please sit down.
I came down here to put a face. As you guys know, Father's Heart Street Ministries, I'm sure you've been to the webpage. She's got the story pages there. I'm featured on that story there as the gentleman with the dog underneath the bridge 8 years ago. I go to Clackamas Community College. I work the IT department up there. I go to school too. And at the end of the summer, I'll be mentoring people at TPI at the Clark Center, showing them how to change their lives. I'm a veteran of the United States Army. Father's Heart taught me integrity and dignity. I'm a 5-year-old little boy who has no clue what drugs is or addiction. Father's Heart saved my life. I do my best to turn around and show other men and women in the rooms of NAAA, whatever the rooms and whatever it is that they're part of, that they too can change. I've been in recovery now for 8 years. Terry's like a mother to me, and I just wanted to put my face with it, so that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, and thank you for coming forward. I appreciate that. Mr. Rainbow, is that right? Rambo.
It's Rambo.
I think we got to misspell. We'll catch that. We'll get it correct.
Temporarily, I am out of the city of Oregon City. For next month, I will be back.
Okay, thanks.
Been here most of my life. Helped build part of the city, Portland. I've never been down so low in life. Thought there was no other source until I went to Father's Heart. I was really skeptical. Thinking, I'm homeless. I'm on the radar. That's scary. I don't want to be that. After walking into Father's Heart, seeing all the smiling faces, the open arms, you hungry, want to warm up. Watch a little TV, lay down, get some rest. Start getting yourself back together. I'm now, next month I should be in permanent housing. So me and my daughter have permanent housing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great.
It's been 4 long years since my wife passed. So things really flip-flop. Since being a part of Father's Heart, I've been volunteering myself a couple days a week. I might be going for 3 days a week here soon. Wherever I can help. I want to give back. I love the name of my Father's heart. Without Father's heart, where will we be? And I want to thank you for all listening and understanding the situation. And it's great seeing the services that they provide for all. Some I've gone to school with. Some of my kids have gone to school with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rimmel. I appreciate that. Christian Chapman and John, I think it's Reuter Hurrah, is that right?
Reuter Hurrah.
Okay, you correct it? Well, over the mic, we'll get it right.
Yep.
Thank you. First you, Mr. Chapman.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
You guys are celebrities.
We are?
I don't know about that.
I think
You got a pie to throw
Betty
at.
Mum and Rocky Smith and your old mayor.
Your old mayor. the old gray hair.
You're right.
Well, I live in Oregon City 21 years now, and I don't plan on going anywhere. I don't see any point. I love it here, and
most of us don't either.
It's comfortable, it's safe, and it's beautiful. Me and my mother run a little sanctuary called Our Sanctuary. We help people, nature, and animals, and I've seen the first effect of homelessness and drug addiction and all the things the downtrodden have to face. And they're truly miraculous souls, and the things they go through, and just the pure strength they have just to keep living and surviving. And I jotted some stuff down. And if I don't look at you, I'm about ready to have a stroke, so I'm just looking at my paper.
You're doing fine.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Chapman. It is the honor to be here in these chambers. So many important decisions are made here, and this is very important. It involves people's lives. Today's decision regards the citizens of Oregon City, both those with homes and without. I speak for those who are seldom heard, those desperately in need for hope. Often they feel they are forgotten and have many problems that have been left untreated. I know that we have inherited these problems because these problems take place in our front yards. Father's Heart is a highly needed ministry for those who are desperate for the things we take for granted. However, it is located right in our beautiful neighborhood. There's a school, a playground, a park, and I, of all people, enjoy this beautiful town for 21 years, and I know how we value our comfort and our safety, and we have the right to roam and work and live and play as we please without having to worry about things. Thanks to the Oregon City Police Department and the Good Work they do. And those without homes have the same wishes and dreams as us. However, their problems often overshadow this fact. Father's Heart brings those problems to the forefront, where healing can take place and understanding can begin. I do not know how we can keep those without homes from sleeping in our parks. They have nowhere to go. However, when we act with compassion and understand others as being equal to ourselves, solutions are bound to take place. I believe we should all love our neighbors as ourselves, even those without homes. Thank you for your hard work, your dedication, and God bless our city and its people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John, I'll let you say your last name. I butchered it so badly.
My name is John Reuter Hera.
Reuter Hera.
You almost got it, Mayor.
No, I can do a lot of almost.
I'm not a citizen of this fair community, but I spend most of my waking hours here. I'm the pastor of Prince of Life Lutheran Church up by the Hagans, and I've served there for 14 years. When Terry was in another community, I would bring homeless folks who came to my door up to her facility, and I was so pleased to have it there, and I would take people in my car. So I was thrilled to hear that she had found someplace local, a wonderful, beautiful facility that I think you've seen. I find it ironic that I serve a Jewish rabbi named Jesus who did not have a permanent address. He found himself sheltered by those that cared for him. He once said, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, and the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." He also said, when you feed the hungry and give a cup of water or maybe a cup of coffee, it's as if you're doing it for me. He said, when you welcome the stranger and give somebody a coat, it's as if you're doing it for me. So our congregation, Prince of Life, has been blessed to partner with the Father's Heart to give financial support, to give donations. When I shared with a member of my congregation Sunday morning that I would be here at this commissioners' meeting, she said, "Let me tell you what I do. I knit caps for the folks there, and I consciously think about color combinations that they might like. And when I knit those caps, I pray for them." I also know that sacrificial love is difficult at times. Sacrificial love costs something. But when I pray for God's will to be done on earth, sacrificial serving love is what it looks like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dan Moreau, is that right? And Joel, I'll try it. Jursted? And you'll correct me. You're pretty good.
So you get another pretty good. I love it.
Go ahead.
That's why he's the old mayor.
Hi, my name is Dan Morrow, and I am a resident of Oregon City, and I'm a priest at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And so you give a priest a mic in front of people, I might start preaching.
I can't do that.
That button's going to go on.
Just kidding. But I live on the same street as Father's Heart. My church is on the same street as Father's Heart, so we share a neighborhood. But more importantly, we share a commitment to serve those who are in need, those who are homeless, those who are destitute. And I'm here to speak in favor of this important ministry in our community that serves those who are falling through the ever-widening holes in our society's safety net. I also want to speak personally about Seth, who's a member of my congregation, whom I baptized on Easter, a beloved member of St. Paul's and a person whose life has been forever changed by Father's Heart Ministry and their mission to serve those in need. Seth showed up at St. Paul's about a year ago after going to Father's Heart the day before. He's dealing with a mild but significant mental illness that facilitated a slow decline into homelessness. He did not have the strong family support that most of us were gifted with, so he ended up in his car, sleeping in his car, living in his car. He was cold, hungry, and in need of support, and he found all of that at Father's Heart. Through a strong collaboration of religious institutions like St. Paul's and Father's Heart, along with state and civic social organizations, Seth is now in transitional housing. He's regularly and gainfully employed. He's an every week attender at St. Paul's, and he's able to help support his young daughter. And he's well on his way to a very productive and self-supporting life. And to be clear, his road out of homelessness began at Father's Heart. Organizations like Father's Heart are helping to close the gap between what government and family can provide and the harsh reality of stark poverty. If they are gone, the society's safety net will simply be less effective and more people will fall through those cracks. So I'm here just to speak in support of them. I was very happy to hear, Mayor, what you said earlier, because there was a rumor going around, and I'm glad you addressed that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, if you can squash that rumor with everybody else, that'd be perfect.
I will do all I can. You bet.
You know, we're in a position where, of course, we respond to complaints in the city, and we do so, but there's never any intention of doing anything to Father's Heart.
Father's Heart is only one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other pieces of the puzzle of the homeless world that we have to look at.
Yeah, you bet.
Joel, I'll let you do your last name.
Yurtsted.
Yurtsted, okay.
Mayor Neely, I want to just affirm what he just shared as far as your opening statements, and it was deeply appreciated by all who serve the Father's Heart, especially. And my name is Joel, and I am pastor of Destiny Christian Fellowship. And though I'm not a citizen of Oregon City, we have served and worked together with the Father's Heart for a long, long time, 6-7 years. And it has just been our privilege to work together with them. And as a local church, we have always sought to work together with the community and link arms together with trustworthy, well-organized organizations that are making a real difference throughout our region. And I know many other pastors from all different denominations, which is really a cool thing.
Yes.
This particular ministry it pulls together people from so many different backgrounds, denominations, no denominations. I mean, it's just straight across the board, and that to me is just a way cool thing. And but throughout the Clackamas County, they feel like I do, and that is, it is such an honor. We all feel an honor to work with Terry Grant and the tremendous team that is there. Each of our local churches can help a few, but when we all come together, and again, that's the cool thing. None of us can do it by ourselves. We kind of tried that for a while, and the burden of it all becomes so overwhelming. But when you can link up with churches all throughout and different kinds of organizations of all kinds that are helping and to serve, it is just an incredible thing. Each of our local churches, as I said, we can help a few, but when we all come together as a community, we can help and serve many. We have helped to cook and serve food, give clothing, help some to find jobs, help them to get reunited with their families, which is an amazing, the stories just go on and on and on of families that are reunited with their parents or families in Arizona, back east. It's really incredible. We can't help everyone, and a few may slip through the cracks, but we are so thankful to be able to help not only the Father's Heart, but also to be able to be helping our city and community at large. All of us joining together, from City Hall to the Police Department, Fire Department, it is all about working together to help as many needy families and individuals that we possibly can. We are really proud to be serving our region with the Father's Heart, and really hope we can continue to do so for a long time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This next one's going to be a battle, but the next three are going to be easier. I'm going to try it. Donna Hertzfeld Kamprath, is that close?
You did very well.
Oh, thank you.
You did very well.
And also, Katrina Wilson could also come forward. You can go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I'm Donna Hertzfeld Kamprath. I am a citizen of Oregon City. I live in the Park Place neighborhood, and this must be the clergy portion of the program tonight because I'm a pastor, one of the pastors at West Lynn Lutheran Church. So I drive lots of different routes to get across back and forth, and often do go up Washington and through the city. And I want to thank you for the openness of the leadership in the community. I watched the July video, and it was a very heartfelt conversation I saw going on, and wrestling with many different levels of what's going on. I think that's really important, and for opening yourselves up tonight for the community to be able to speak. Being hospitable is really hard work. My neighborhood just they're adding 8 new houses, 7 new houses right around me. So all of a sudden I've got 4 new neighbors that moved in, and that effort to walk out the door, walk over there, introduce yourself, and then hope that you'll like each other and not irritate each other on whatever level is hard work. And so I think that's especially when we are people of maybe different cultures, and that can be many different kinds of cultures. And what I heard in the July video and in the wrestling with the statistics that I think were really useful from the police department, and I was glad that the slides could be viewed even on the video. I just saw that wrestling with different cultures, and people who maybe see the world very differently for whatever reason, and it can be economic, it can be cultural, it can be education levels, and I think that is a lot of hard work, and we need partnership. I want to echo what you said about last month as well. We need partnership for complex problems. And so as much as I love all the personal stories that are coming out, I don't feel I need to necessarily speak to that. But your call for people to come into responsibility, I think, is a really good one, not just for Terry Gant and the Father's Heart,
Right.
but for all the different agencies that work and operate in our community, all the people that own a home and
Yes.
live in this community. We all have something to contribute to solving these complex problems. And so I just want to say, I think you have resources in people who are sitting here. I know there are people with the skill to help communities come together around complex issues, and I hope that we can call upon each other to help you do that, bringing together the kinds of skills that we might have. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson.
My name is Katrina Wilson. I currently became homeless on April 1st. Due to medical reasons, I am not of Oregon City. There were several reasons I had to live in my truck, and in June, about end of May, June, somebody mentioned Father's Heart. So I went. She opened her doors and treated me like I was a person. I went to Portland to join. There was so much, I didn't feel welcome. There was screaming, there was yelling, there was arguing. There was no respect for anybody. I walked in that door. It didn't matter who I was. She didn't care that I was homeless. She opened her doors. Thankfully, I got a job. She opened her doors again on days that we weren't supposed to. She let me take showers to clean up so I could be to work. She helped me get clothes so I could go to work. She gave me comfort when there was nothing anywhere else. My husband, my fiance, excuse me, he couldn't be here today. He would clean the parking lots for her and do lots of things for her and help her. There'd be times we'd see garbage in the park. I would walk across the street and pick up the garbage because I knew they would get blamed for it. There were some times that there were people laying in the park that we knew that were coming in. He went over and talked to them and let them know that it wasn't right. Father's Heart is a great place to be. They've taken me from zero, because I used to have a home for 45 years in Gladstone, and to be here where I'm at today, I never thought I'd be homeless. And I am so thankful that Terry opened the doors, and all the staff has been overwhelmingly helpful. They fix you great lunches that when you don't have any. I was fortunate. I do have a little bit of money. I do have food stamps. A lot of the people don't. So it is a great benefit that for what they do for all of us homeless people. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Wilson.
you.
I appreciate that. Sunshine, is it Katie or Katie? Katie. Katie, Sunshine Katie, and Tiffany Greg, would you please come forward too?
I'm Sunshine Katie, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Father's Heart. I am not only a resident of Oregon City, I live directly across the street. I have lived there for almost 2 years, and I am also a hospice nurse and a single mom. And I can honestly say that I feel safer where I live today than I have ever before. I'm proud to show my son integrity, compassion, and such as people with mental illness, and that our society just doesn't really acknowledge or help. I can say that I know most of them by name. They greet us in the morning. I've left my garage door open at night. I've left my car door open all night. They have sat and watched my things, have not touched them, and waited till I came out in the morning and graciously let me know that they kept us safe. And it just, I can't say enough. They want to give back. They're always offering a helping hand. I gave them a basketball hoop, and they set up a little picnic area out in the side, and it brought them a sense of home, and they just want to keep giving back. They just want to be accepted. I, as a nurse, have worked other homeless rotations, such as Day Watch, downtown. Nothing pales in comparison. I've done 6 rotations downtown, and what Terry has going on would be it would be disheartening to see, and I've seen it grow in my own community over the last 2 years. My neighbor could not be here tonight and wanted me to state she has a 6-year-old son. And as well, we feel very comforted and we feel very safe, and we would not be there and want to stay there and offer our support to Terry. She opens up her shelter in times of adverse conditions, not only the snow, not only the deadly heat. And I have reached out to my hospice services, and we'd like to start offering Terry and working with them on some homeless street medicine to help those for end stage of life, which we don't think about. A lot of the population and the homeless are also the elderly, and we've kind of left out that population. There are people that can be vocationally retrained, but there are people that they're at the end of their life. And I think what Terry does is amazing, and I am proud to be a part of it. So, and I'm very, very thankful that you have no intentions of closing them, and I will help, because that rumor came my way as well.
Well, can you squash that rumor?
Thank you, Ms. Katie. Ms. Grigg.
My name's Tiffany Grigg, and I live in Oregon City. I'm blessed to be able to say that I volunteer there. I'm there 4 days a week, and since I've been there, Terry's taught me a lot. Everybody, the clients have taught me a lot. It's just a blessing all around, but the one thing that sticks to my mind is Terry says that we're bridge builders, we're peacekeepers, and the community just needs to be a part of everything, and it's just as important to her that the community feels safe, because we offer safety and we offer hope to people that don't have any. They come in just lost, completely lost, and I've seen it. I've seen life come back to these people, and it is just as important that the safety is still felt by the community, and anybody that's ever has a question or doesn't know what it's about can come in and just look or ask. But any concern that's ever come her way is always, she wants to address it, anything, always. And there's so many stories that go on about all the great things that the Father's Heart does. And I wanted to come here tonight to let everybody know what a blessing it was, and that any problem or anything she does want to address. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming forward. Jesse,
said that, I keep forgetting.
was there anything else?
I just wanted to state that Terry also takes drug and alcohol-free policy very seriously.
No,
and I don't think anybody has brought that up.
Yeah.
So
I was going to make a couple of comments after you all spoke. Thank you. In fact, I'm going to invite somebody else to speak to afterwards. Jesse Dawkins and Amy Crombie. Mr. Dawkins.
So, let's see. When I became homeless, I'm Jesse Dawkins. Lived here for 5 years. Graduated at Oregon City High School in 2012. And I became homeless because my father got drunk one night and decided to wrestle with me and my sister. So I had enough, and I decided to leave. That night, it was 30 degrees outside. I went and I slept in a dumpster. I put a piece of cardboard down in the dumpster so I could sleep on it. It was so cold, I woke up and I went and I slept in a laundry room. The next day, I found out about Father's Heart. They told me that you can get a bus ticket there. They'll feed you, they'll give you lunch, and they'll give you a shower. So I decided to go down there, but unfortunately it was Monday and it was closed. So I spent another night outside. I slept behind an apartment complex on the ground, and so that day, Tuesday, I went down there and I went inside, and they told me that since it's so cold out, they're allowing people to sleep inside. So that really made my day, and they gave me a razor so I could shave, and I took a shower, and they gave me some fresh socks. They told me where I can set my stuff, and they gave me a mat and a nice warm blanket to sleep on. I took a nap, stayed there for a couple days, and then I went looking around to see where I could live. I went looking for some family members. fortunately, my uncle has been staying at some family members' houses, and he won't leave. So they wouldn't let me. So I stayed there a couple nights, and then my friend Sophie was kind enough to let me stay at her house. So Father's Heart really did help me a lot. I was 19 years old at the time. You know, not all homeless people are from Portland or from Gladstone. Not all of them are suffering from mental disabilities or addiction. Some of them are just youth like me, you know, fresh out of high school, got some trouble at home, need a place to stay. So I'm very thankful for Father's Heart.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Dawkins.
you.
Thank you
very much. Ms. Corman.
Sorry, this is really emotional. I'm not homeless, and I'm sorry, my name's Amy Crombie, and I'm from Estacada. Okay, so I just came here today to put a different face on homelessness. I'm a married mother of 5 kids, and I'm blessed to live on a beautiful 40-acre farm, and I oftentimes feel very greedy that I have so much beautiful land that my kids get to explore on, when others, just as he said, are living in very different environment. So I wanted to back up. 20 plus years ago, I did live in Oregon City. I went to Clackamas Community College, and I was a senator in the student government, and I fell in love with a reporter of the school newspaper. The next year, I was blessed and became student body president of Clackamas Community College and became engaged to the now editor of the college newspaper. I'm going to refer to him as John Doe going forward. Sorry. He's an Army veteran, honor roll student, editor of the college newspaper, doing everything right in the world. Wonderful man. He and I we plan to take over the city. No, save the world, if you will, help everybody, and we're so ambitious. And our plans kind of got detoured when I became pregnant with my now oldest son, who's 21, college student himself and working. And so I chose to stay home and raise our son. And let's flash forward now. We ended up not staying together, but that was because we didn't know then that the onset of schizoaffective disorder came on. Okay, sorry. So October of '99, I got a phone call in the middle of the night that he had a psychotic break in downtown Portland. He was a successful marketing director of a prominent real estate firm, a very devoted father, had a beautiful home in Northwest Portland. Ever since October of 1999, he was in and out of involuntary mental health holds for 5 days, always a different hospital. So I guess I wanted to put a new face on homelessness. He's been homeless for 15 years. Very intelligent man, smarter than probably a lot of us. But mental illness is a huge factor in homelessness. And I just wanted to remind you of that. So when he was picked up for psychotic breaks, which are delusional, talking at a water fountain in downtown Portland, he was tested for drugs and alcohol. There was none. So let us all please go home today and just remember that when you see someone homeless, you know, we all have different stories, and not one of us are exempt from ever possibly becoming mentally ill or experiencing a natural disaster, illness, loss of job, financial catastrophe. We all at any point could in fact become homeless. Not one of us is better than another. So I just wanted to tell you that with regard to the Father Heart Ministry, I was blessed to actually grow up with Terry Gant's children in Estacada, and so I know her from that aspect, but she is an angel here on earth, and Oregon City should be very proud. I am so impressed and relieved to hear your announcement, so bravo, Oregon City. I just wanted to remind you that I reside in Estacada, but you have a lot of people on board with wanting to help this community continue supporting the Father's Heart Ministry. Now, with that said, real quickly, I wish
I wish, it's been 3 years since we've heard from John Doe. A church in Portland used to let him use the phone every Sunday to call and connect with us on the phone, but it's been 3 years and we don't know where he's at. Ironically, it was 3 years ago that I became involved with the Father's Heart Ministry, taking my senior citizens there to help serve lunch there. I wish I could have connected my John Doe with the Father's Heart Ministry. We might know where he was at if that was the case. So that's all. I just wanted to put another face to homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Mr. DeBoard and Marilee Keena, please. And correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. DeBoard? Oh. Go ahead.
I'm Mary Lee King, and I'm a resident of Westland and a volunteer at Father's Heart. And I've changed my comments in view of what's already been said. I did watch the video last night of your work session in July, and that influenced a lot of my opinions. And but I'm so relieved to hear you say that there's no intention of forcing Father's Heart out. However, perhaps it's time for the city and county to start working with Father's Heart and the churches and other organizations in town that are trying to make a difference and solve the problems of low-income housing, hunger, and jobs. They, the homeless, well could be your grandmother or your son or yourself. We have people experiencing poverty and homelessness in our community. Their needs must be addressed and served by the city and county governments, just like other citizens' needs must be addressed and are being addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. One more, Mr. DeBoard, are you here, or if you want to speak? Okay. Norm King, and is Rocky Smith Jr. on the list, but
yeah.
Okay. How you doing?
Good.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. John, or is it Doug?
Doug. I got a brother John, though.
No, I was thinking
John
about you being...
Oh, that John!
Everywhere.
Elevator. My name's Norm King, and I do not live in Westland.
We'll be okay with that.
I'm a former mayor of not Oregon City. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you tonight. I'd like to start off by congratulating you and Oregon City for having such an excellent and a highly regarded, effective facility that feeds, clothes, comforts our homeless citizens. The homeless are truly the least of us. They are penniless, hungry, without a roof over their head, unemployed, unemployable, without family support, carrying all their belongings on their back. I've been in your shoes actually for several years, all of them, and having to balance a new need for services and at the same time respond to citizens' concern about their personal or economic security is a big problem. I watched part of the tape from the earlier meeting, and it was clear that there were a lot of things to balance. Having a larger homeless population in your town is a big change. It's a big change for city staff, particularly the police department, but also the departments that deal with social services. But it's a big change for the residents not used to a needy population that is new and looks different. And I had a lot in here about statistics and things like that, and I think everybody else earlier has spoken well enough on that. But I encourage you to spend some time talking to all of your neighborhood residents and your businesses. And I encourage you to examine the whole problem. Some of the discussion you were having approach this, that it's a bigger problem. It's not a problem of homelessness, but it's about housing, and it's about shelter, and it's about training and education, and it's a big problem. And so, in my opinion, and let me say that we need to stress that we have a big problem that might be shelter and clothing now, but it's really about jobs and getting people into housing so they can look for work and raise their families. And I also encourage you to network with your surrounding communities, because it's really their problem as well, and with the county, because everybody has different things to contribute to the solution.
Thank you, Norm.
You're
Thank you.
Norm, if some of those statistics you want to share, you can just leave your letter there with it, and we'll get it onto the record if you want.
Okay.
Thanks so much for coming. Before I go on to the next person on the list, is there anybody else in the audience wishing to speak on Father's Heart Ministry? Okay. Commissioner Smith.
I'm going to start slowly because I've been on the commission since 2008, so I'm the one of us sitting up here. The mayor's been here the longest, but because he's the old mayor. Yeah.
We say that with love.
The oldest mayor you've got.
We have had many huge topics that have come to us. I don't remember another meeting as powerful as this one since I've been here. I've lived in Oregon City my whole life. My father's a retired police officer, and I remember when my father would go to work as a police officer in Oregon City as a kid, he always had $50 in his wallet, and was always there to give to anyone that he thought might need it. And Oregon City has always had homeless people. As a teacher, I don't know how many. I see multiple students in the audience tonight. I see multiple past students out there tonight. I've had a lot of homeless students, and I've always, many times, have felt we didn't have the resources to help them. And so this is very emotional and a very hard topic, and we all know that. And it's extremely difficult. I even felt awkward at our last meeting because it's so easy for people, and even in the last week, we've heard from citizens, and it's so easy to make judgments. And I know that as a teacher, I have taught every possible, background student you can imagine, different religions, different cultures, physical abilities, and everything that you could imagine. And so there's not a person out there that I can't feel like I relate to in some way. And once you do that, you know how important it is. I think that a couple people tonight spoke so well. I thank everyone for coming tonight and speaking on this topic, because I think the solution is the people that are sitting in this room tonight. And I know there's more. I think Donna and Mary Lee spoke to that point, that what we have done is we've brought this issue to an issue that's been a problem in Oregon City and Clackamas County for a long time, but the Father's Heart is not the issue. The issue is it's not enough. And I think that we can now work together with the police department, which I know are very, very interested in talking about how to help resolve this problem, as this commission is and as everyone in this room is. Jesse, thank you for telling your story. That was tough, and I really appreciate it. And all of your stories tonight made an impact on me, but just working with students at the high school and knowing the types of students who are living in their cars and trying to get to school, and teachers asking where their homework are, or where their homework is, and I tell my students that yes, homework and being at school and all those things are important, but sometimes other things take priorities, and everyone around you needs to know that so that they can help. And I do my best to try to do that, but even then it's not enough. I live, probably 5-6 blocks away from the shelter. So it is in my neighborhood as well. Drive past it every day. And so I'm very much committed, as I think everyone in this room is, to solving this problem and to adding or working to add more services that can really deal with the hours that are not available for services after Father's Heart closes. And I think that's the real challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. I think others will have comments too. I've been fortunate. I've never been in the position that you have personally, but I've had a child of mine who got to serious drug issues, which left her homeless. We always had the net out for her. She wasn't willing to come into it until she met a life and death situation. We were there for her. A grandson, a similar situation, and again, his parents, our children, had the same kind of situation, but had the net available. And not everybody has the net available, and we appreciate that. I have a sister has a bipolar disorder, and she has suffered from schizophrenia. Fortunately, we've had the resources to help her through that. But I also realize that's not true for everybody, and so I'm somewhat empathetic to some of the stories I've heard. I know that there are other people on the commission that had some of these issues too. So I want to thank you all for coming. We're looking forward to. Do you want to say something? Go right ahead.
Yes. So I'm Commissioner Betty Mumm, and I'm the one that asked to have this be on our work agenda because Oregon City does have a homeless population out there, and it's not just My Father's Heart ministry. It's also people that don't go there, and they are still here, and they've been here a while, and we just have to. Everybody has to, be able to work together through all these issues. The neighborhood has to have a seat at the table because these people haven't experienced life maybe so much. So they have not seen this, the urinating and stuff like that in public. And, they've just had the blinders, and it's not necessarily Terry's people, I guess I could say, that are the problem. But everybody has to work together. So I'm sorry that you guys got all riled up in the rumors. I wish that if you guys ever hear a rumor, I wish you would just send any of us an email or give the city manager a call and say, I heard this, is this true, is it not? Because rumors can just spiral out of control, and it just gets everybody all anxious and upset. I too can tell you my story. I've been probably in everyone's shoes out there, on the streets, had a daughter on the streets. I totally get it. I understand it. But my purpose for having this was to start the dialogue. There has been no dialogue in the city of Oregon City with these the homeless issue, and it's not necessarily homeless. It's homeless is a huge umbrella that a lot of things fall under. So it's addiction. It's not addiction. It's domestic violence. I mean, there's just so many different layers, but definitely what is going on at the Father's Heart Ministry is a good thing. I mean, we don't ever want to, not say that. But our neighborhood citizens also have to be educated. So everybody has to be able to come together and take the blinders off and say, this is reality, and work together to help. And there was no intent to resolve anything in one meeting or two meetings or anything like that. I know the mayor and I had, and the city manager and the police chief had a meeting with Terry and some of the people from the Father's Heart Ministry at the table, and we were chatting, and I think it was amazing just to be able to sit at the table and hear each other. I just think that's the right thing we have to do. So I think we need to continue to talk about it. We can't resolve it in a meeting or two.
Mr. Pauly.
I just want to thank each and every one for coming here tonight and engaging in this conversation. This is a very important conversation to have, very important. I heard, the needs of the homeless, and I think that this is what this is about, is figuring out those needs and how as a community we can address that, especially, needs for shelter. And all working together. There's so many great entities in this community. We have Hope, all the churches, Backpack Buddies. I can name. There's so many. I can't even name them. It's amazing. But it is working together for the needs of the homeless. So I'm glad we're having this discussion. Thank you.
Commissioner Roth.
I'd like to thank you all for coming here tonight too. I am a resident of the neighborhood and have had some repercussions. I can't say it's from Father's Heart, but I've had people in my yard and at night broken beer bottles and things that I don't want to find in my yard. Of course, you don't like to go out and find that when you're you're working hard to take care of a place and make the neighborhood better. This neighborhood has increased incredibly in the pride of people in this neighborhood over the years. Given that part, I'm also a big part of St. John's Food Closet and St. Vincent de Paul. So we work with homeless and people that need food every week. My husband is the one that runs the whole thing down there. I do have homeless people in my family. So I'm used to all of I'm very, very aware of this. What I think we're lacking at this point, and this is talking to Archbishop Sample in Portland, who I got the idea from, is a church community coming together, or a church community and some other community coming together to take care of people at night. The Father's Heart isn't the problem during the day. We need a place for people to stay at night. And some of the ideas were, churches taking turns, opening up a shelter at night a week at a time, a lock-in shelter or whatever. But we need to come up with some other situation where we can keep the people safe and warm and off the streets. And I do really want to thank you for coming and opening our eyes some more. Thank you.
In a moment, I'll invite staff if they wish to just speak on this topic, but I specifically invited Deputy District Attorney Bill Stewart to come forward, and I see he is here, and I appreciate it. If you have some words that you could share with us, I'd appreciate it. And he's worked with Father's Heart as well, so people there, he knows them. He knows Terry quite well.
I guess the point I would make is I was still thinking about the meeting we had yesterday.
Yes.
When we talked about Father's Heart, and I think David captured quite well when he talked about the competing interests that we need to find some way to harmonize.
Yes.
And I think there are tools to do that. It's not easy. We had talked about a good neighbor agreement as one possible means to kind of bring folks together. I think there's some other tools. And the only thing I will say is that I'm ready to try to help in any way I can. I love the fact that you're having this conversation. I think there's a great opportunity here.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree.
And I don't know if any of our staff want to speak up. If so, I'll just invite them to do so now.
Thanks.
If not, we'll go ahead and continue with the rest
Doug,
of our...
I do want to
Sure.
say a
Yeah.
couple things. I think
Go
I
ahead.
should. I want to say just a couple things. One, when and she has left, but the first woman who sat down, I cannot remember her name, who sat there and said that she's homeless. Courage, we think about soldiers and different things. There are courage in places that was the first thing that came to my mind when she started talking. And for those of you to sit there and tell your story, that takes tremendous courage to open yourself up like that, and it has a lot of impact. And that's courage that some cops or soldiers or people who always are thought to have courage may never have. So thank you for opening yourself up like that. I think that education, there are different things that happen in society. As a police officer, you see it all, and a lot of times, you wish that everybody could see what you saw, because if they did see what you saw, you believe that they would respond differently, or that they would, whatever your cause was, that they would help out. I spent years as a child abuse detective, and I wish everybody understood the things that happen out there, and I really think that same education is beneficial to everybody here. The challenge is, as it sounds like the support for Terry, there's a lot of it in the room here. So because this is a community fix, I'm just going to tell you about some of our challenges, because I'm not going to fix them, and you're not going to fix them. But I think a bunch of us together, that's how we're going to get somewhere. I'm just going to say these stats again. 2010, 11, and 12, we had in our city, these are people calling up saying, "Hey, I need the cops to deal with a transient." 2010, 139, 2011, 142, 2012, 104. The end of 2012, Terry got her business license. 2013, we had 587. This year, we're at the 6-month point, we're at 311. Those are just facts. And so my challenge is people call the police department to deal with livability. Whether that's people stealing cars, whether that's I always talk about the differences. There's either people have rational fears or they have irrational fears. Sometimes they're afraid of something they don't need to be afraid of, and that's our job to educate them. Sometimes they're afraid of things that they should be afraid of. We say, "Yeah, well, let us try and get rid of this. You're absolutely right in your fear." I think that when it comes to transient people, what you have is a community that the landscape changed, and I'm thank God that Terry's the one, and all of you helping out running this shelter, because whoever was talking about the difference in these shelters, I can tell driving by the ones downtown, and I'm realizing that publicly I'm saying negative things about them, and I know they serve a lot of people, so that's not my intent, but I know that Terry, I was surprised the very first time that I went and spoke with her at the little teeny details that she paid attention to. I was surprised because I didn't expect that somebody understood that those little things contribute to community fears. And I think some people in the community have been won over. I think some people have not been. I think some people are still afraid. And not all of the people, it's not all tied to Father's Heart. And we don't have a lot of problems. We really don't have, they're negligible at the site, at Father's Heart. They're all throughout the city. And these stats that I'm giving, this is citywide. It's not at Father's Heart. So we're talking about solutions. We came up with some yesterday that basically have to do with a bunch of people sitting at a table, different communities, Father's Heart, DA, police, and I know the faith-based community will be there. It's kind of a work in progress. But I just wanted people to understand from our perspective that I really, my biggest fear as a police chief is having our, when we're bringing up facts or bringing up the I don't even want to say the other side because that's what I'm trying to avoid but I don't want this. We can't have, or which side are you on? That can't be the thing. And I don't want that because we're presenting this other side that is my position as a police chief or that my agency, that's what's going on. It's simply those calls, those numbers that I gave, those are our response. I have to respond, I being our agency, we have to respond to the community and to what the community fears. So that's our challenge, is fixing those fears and mitigating the effect of all the good work that's being done. I hope that makes some sense, what I'm saying. That's all I got.
I want to make a comment. He shared these statistics and these current up-to-date statistics for this year. Very small proportion of those led to any kind of citation. It's not what the police want to do unless they have to do it. But one thing I wanted to mention also about Terry Gantt, when she first came here, and this is based on the discussion we had today. It was very brief, but I think she wanted to share some things, and I think the intent was maybe for me to share them here. When she opened up the facility, it was open to the general public that needed the services. But as problems came up and it was clear that some of the clients were in fact engaged in illegal activities, taking drugs and so forth, those services, in fact, were then denied. She's very conscious about the needs of the community, and she wants to make sure the services they offered are to needy people that really want to take control of their lives to the extent they're able to. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I should indicate, too, I own property, lived in it many years and still own it. I'm going to be putting it on the market in a couple of months, but just a block and a half up the street from Father's Heart. Shortly after she moved in, I came down and paid her a visit and welcomed her to the community. I would say I've never had any property problems in that period of time. And that maybe some of the people that might cause problems don't want to do it right in that neighborhood. I don't know. But Commissioner Smith, he's indicated much the same. And we know there are problems that we have to deal with, but I really appreciate your all coming out. I think this has been that's for us all. I think it's been a moving experience, and I think we're sympathetic to the problems we face, and I'm pleased to hear the success stories that Father's Heart has been able to produce as well. That's a great story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next time you hear a rumor, just give us a call. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to give you a hand.
Yeah, let's go.
Thank you for coming.
We'll have a quick break.
Can we go
Yes,
to
we're going to go ahead and take a break. We'll come back together at we'll make it 1:45. We're reconvening the commission meeting, and now is the time for adoption of the agenda. Is there anything anybody wants pulled from the consent agenda?
Citizen comments.
Oh, excuse me. We have additional citizen comments. Okay, my apologies.
And I'm sorry, this person marked the wrong one, so I don't have any.
Okay.
That person was under the previous item.
All right, very good. With that, anything anybody wants to poll? Okay, we nothing to poll, so we'll approve the consent agenda later. Public hearings, and this is declaring a 6-month moratorium on land development and building and sewer. And I'm glad it's a 6-month moratorium. I hope we can keep within it. So we're going to find out whether we can or not from John Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. And the 6-month is a little deceiving, so we'll go through that and talk
I was afraid that was going to be the case.
But it is a 6-month moratorium. It's actually ordinance number 14-1006. And as you mentioned, Mayor, we're declaring a 6-month moratorium on land development and building and sewer permit approval in certain areas, not all areas, just certain areas within the city due to a lack of sanitary sewer capacity. We're also declaring this an emergency. So Carrie can probably dazzle you with a little bit of legal justification for some of this, but I'm going to talk through it first, and maybe the dazzling won't be.
I want to see her dazzle us.
Yeah, me too.
She's working on it.
I'm working on it.
We find you dazzling too, John. Don't worry about it.
Wasn't looking for that.
You opened the door.
We're kind of hopeful that we've given you enough information in the work session, and we've been talking a fair amount about sanitary sewer and moratorium and some of the results and some of our confidence levels with the master planning that we've done to date, that we can obtain consensus tonight. Our ask is for unanimous consensus. If we have unanimous consensus amongst this commission tonight, what I understand is we can read the ordinance title once, vote on it,
Yeah.
read it again, and vote on it, right? And if that happens, then we will have sewer moratorium and can move into what would be solutions round, which we're looking forward to moving there as well. So just a little bit of background for those who may not have heard all the information that we've provided. We've done a couple of years worth of work on our sanitary sewer evaluation, master planning, and that's all kind of coming to a culmination. We hope to have the master plan before the City Commission for approval very soon, and we're on the 12th. We're actually working through, and we want to bring forth the rate study that we've been working on as well, rate and SDC study. We hired Brown and Caldwell, who's a recognized consultant in the industry who does a lot of work for the city and other cities with regard to master planning, and we feel like they've done a really good job with our sewer master plan, and we have a document that we'll be able to use for at least the next 10 years to implement some of the recommendations that have come out of that. We have 4 areas in Oregon City that are currently capacity limited or deficient, and because of those 4 areas, they impact a fair amount of the city but a lot of it's built out area. So there is still development potential in some of these areas, but a lot of it's much of it's already built out. And but in these 4 areas, we have in some of them actually seen overflows in the past, and in other areas we haven't necessarily seen those, but we know that the pipelines in those areas get dangerously close to overflowing. So, and those conditions happen in existing conditions, and they happen in what we call a 5-year regulatory design storm, as well as a 10-year regulatory design storm, which we also analyzed so that we could help establish a better than the bare minimum fix. So, like it or not, Oregon City and at least a couple other governing bodies have rules, and so one of the reasons we're in this moratorium is because Oregon City's comprehensive land use plan requires that growth not exceed the community's ability to provide essential public services. It requires that the city plan and operate and maintain the wastewater collection system for all current and anticipated city residents, and it requires that the city provide enough collection capacity to meet standards established by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, and to avoid discharging inadequately treated sewer into the surface water system. The municipal code has similar requirements. The city's municipal code has similar requirements, and DEQ and the Clean Water federal government prohibit discharges of pollutants to sewer overflow. So we're taking this moratorium and some of the findings that we have and our experiences that we've had with our sewer system very seriously. We feel like the moratorium, while it's a serious measure and has some negative implications, it's puts us on a path which we think is an accelerated path to fixing our problems, making responsible decisions to getting those problems fixed, and doing that without further contributing to an existing problem. So therefore, we can't allow any development or redevelopment that increases flows to these restricted areas. We recognize there's impacts associated with the moratorium, so we've made every effort that we can to minimize that effort. We've worked with a few. We've talked to you about 4 areas that were that are constrained. We also talked to you about 4 different applicants that were already in the planning process or building permit process, and at least 2 of those we feel like we've got some workaround that will help allow them to continue to develop. And so we think that, combined with some of the things that we're doing with regard to allowing land use review and approval go through the system, and then once that's approved, maybe we can't allow a construction permit at that time, but allowing that land use approval to stay in the queue until we've resolved the problems, and then give them another 12 months after we've actually lifted the moratorium, fixed the problem and lifted the moratorium, and can allow them to move forward. So we feel like those are pretty big efforts on behalf of the city to kind of continue to see our city thrive with economic development in the form of building permits or land use development. So I want to acknowledge, we got a letter today from the Home Builders Association, who were, I don't want to put what they are doing. They're opposed to the idea of a moratorium, but they also suggested that they were willing to kind of help the city with some ideas maybe that they have, and we're recognizing that we haven't had a lot of time to talk to the Home Builders Association. We're open to that. We definitely hope to gain their support with responsible solutions, so we look forward to that and working with them. We don't necessarily think that the reasons that they provided are any different than what we've included in your application package for justification for why we need to move into a moratorium, and why we think we've taken the appropriate steps to get there. And
Is that letter in here?
It's actually not in there.
Okay.
That just came in about 3 o'clock today.
Oh, okay.
So I think, again, for the most part, we put a lot of energy into the engineering report that is in the plan.
Yes.
That I think addresses some of the concerns that we saw in their report. Any development or redevelopment proposal using conventional wastewater conveyance that does not increase wastewater flows to these capacity constrained areas, we would also exempt them. I mean, if they're not contributing to that, we're looking for ways to make that continue to happen. The moratorium will allow the city to identify solutions, establish funding, plan and construct necessary improvements, and the 6-month moratorium is I wish we could get it done in 6 months. I think these projects are going to take longer than 6 months, and the process is set up such, and again, Carrie can razzle and dazzle you with a little bit more of this, but basically it's set up in a way that requires us to check in with you and let you know how we're coming along with our goal of fixing these problems. And so it does require us to check back in from time to time. But with
is
that,
6 months reality, really? I mean,
well, I think
The
6 months.
statute only allows you to have 6 months.
oh.
And then you renew it.
I see. Okay.
Right.
Now I understand.
I can give you a little bit of what I think the schedule is if you're interested.
Yeah, we think, and again, some of this is based on our discussion with regard to rates, but we have heard loud and clear that we need to do all we can as staff to get those fixes to a point where they're ready to be bid
Right.
and constructed.
Yeah.
And we need to do that quickly, and we need to prioritize that, based on, I think for us, it's based on where there's existing development applications that are kind of in the queue, or there's potential for that. So again, we want to focus on those areas quickly.
Right.
Hospital's one of the areas that has some that's upstream of a constrained area. So we recognize we want to get in there. So I would say, we want to move to where on a program that would put us in construction on a couple of the areas within 2016. So we think that's a pretty aggressive schedule.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Carrie, is there something you wanted to add?
Well, the way the schedule works, if we adopt the moratorium today, it takes effect today, it's good for 6 months. One of the terms of the moratorium is that you adopt a corrective program, and that presumably is going to be the sewer master plan.
Right.
It needs to be adopted in 60 days of the adoption of the moratorium, which is going to be a really tight schedule. We think we can make it so that the commission will take final action on the master plans by the 3rd of October. which would be 60 days from today. Sorry.
I have a voice that carries, though, right?
So if we can get that, if you can get the master plan adopted by the 3rd of October, which would mean commission would take action on it the 1st of October, you get an extra 60 days, which, you know, in the large scheme probably isn't much, but we get an extra 60 days beyond our 6-month moratorium. Then every 6 months, we can renew the moratorium 3 times. That's 2 years total. That puts you till August 6, 2016, if we don't take advantage of the extra 60 days.
Okay.
If that's not enough time, then we can move into a public facility strategy adoption process that is good for 1 year, and that can be renewed 2 more years, or 3 more years, so that gives us 5 years. So the total we could have is 7 years.
And
if
we
we took the
definitely
moratorium and the
don't
public
know that
facility
long,
strategy would be August 6, 2021. So.
Okay.
The key is going to be making sure we don't let our moratorium expire in these little 6-month sections, because we have to give DLCD notice 45 days in advance, just like we did this time. So there's going to be incentive on everybody's part to keep this moving because of the just gray cloud that's hanging over our head. And I mean, and that's what the home builders intended, because we don't want to stay in a moratorium situation.
Right.
But the other thing I want to add to what John mentioned is that there are criteria that we have to meet in order to have a moratorium. And the first one is that we identify the need, and we really think the Brown and Caldwell studies do identify the need in a real detailed way. And we haven't heard from anybody that there are flaws in that analysis. The second criteria is that we limit it to the extent we are able to, and we have made every effort to reduce those boundaries as much as we can. I mean, we're able to take Settlers Point out, and then that we accommodate housing and development needs of the area affected to the extent we can. And so one of the home builders' complaints in their letter is that we are stifling new development. But really, it's the flows that are the issue. If new development can show it won't increase the flows, then they're exempt. So we're making every effort to exclude everybody we possibly can if they can show that they won't increase the flows, because we just can't have any more flows in these areas.
Right.
So that's what the ordinance is directed at responding to.
Okay.
And because we have policies in place right now directing Public Works and the building department not to issue permits, we really need to move forward with the formal adoption of the moratorium now, because it is the formal action. And certainly we can continue to talk to the home builders or anybody to restrict this as quickly as we can.
Okay. Thank you.
So David was just reminding me that, or the city manager was just reminding me that, you know, this fix for these challenged areas is not as bad as it could be. We saw capital estimates for these projects at about a little over $3 million. And not to be a spoiler, but for August 12th, when we talk about rates, we've looked at the rate study so far, and we want to present that to you in a positive way, that you see that it's not as bad as I was expecting, to be quite honest with you. So just feel good about that.
One thing I want to mention this, and you know, most of these constrained areas are the city's collection system. There is one of the constrained areas that I think is a Tri-City facility, but ironically, given that tenure of discussion in the community about the city's right-of-way fee, ironically, all of this problem is occurring in our right-of-way. And I did some quick math, and if we had been charging, for example, all of the utilities, including just the Tri-City portion alone of the fee, that's 15 years of that fee would have fixed this problem. And you recently passed a resolution dedicating the Tri-City portion of the right-of-way fee to fixing things like that are in the right-of-way that affect the district. And one of those is inflow and infiltration, which is a different problem than what we have here, but certainly it contributes to these bottlenecks in our system. So the discussion is happening at a time that's just critical for the city to fix these things.
Absolutely.
And when we fix those things and we act responsibly with respect to managing our right-of-way,
we benefit not only our community but our entire county that is served by this community and the services that people need from the county when they come here. So it's, our success is actually our county's success together, and I think it's important to recognize that.
Absolutely.
So, Carrie, help me out here. To adopt this tonight, we need to read it once.
Yeah. Well, the way the charter reads is that we can take action after 2 readings of the title only if we have a unanimous vote at the first reading, which you probably already know. But I don't know if anyone is here to testify.
Yeah,
there's one person up.
So.
Before we take that, questions from us, and some of that already been asked. And maybe there's at the South Fork Water Board, it had been indicated that monies for water infrastructure, and I don't know if it applied to wastewater infrastructure, that a bill had been passed and signed by the president that has low interest loans for cities greater than $20,000 for a fair amount. And of course, we would have to put that to a vote of the people if we were ever to take that kind of bonded indebtedness, and I don't know what those interest rates are. But is there the possibility at all for us to seek a low interest bond to facilitate the payment with payments of future
Mayor,
SDCs?
there is, but let me just suggest to you that it's kind of like a distinction without a difference. And the reason for that is that if we take on debt, it's going to be revenue based. So it's going to be a revenue bond.
Yep.
And the revenue bond is going to be supported by the rates.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pass rates without the revenue bond, you can do that. You don't need an election for that, but you do that, and you pay for the fixes with the rates, and all of the money goes to the repairs. If you do a bond, you can get all the money up front, but you have to pay all the administrative costs, and it's amazing to me what bond attorneys make as a percentage of that transaction. So there's a whole bunch of transaction costs, and it's probably, since it's still paid for with the rates, it's paying for the rates and fixing them as fast as you can, or paying the rates and then paying a bunch of other costs, transaction costs, and then using the rates to still fix the problem. So I think maybe you'd be better served by spending those rates on the fixes instead of the transaction, because it's the same financing mechanism either way.
Okay, and maybe it's the same issue, but I heard somebody proposing to me that if in fact a developer wanted to front the money for the build out and then pay it over time, whether that'd be a possibility. I'll give an example. It's not a moratorium, but when the South End sewer, and you're familiar with this, John, but the South End sewer system was put in.
Right.
It had been extremely expensive to do it piece by piece by piece, so an agreement was made by one of the earlier developers to actually front the cost for putting the line all the way out, or most of the way out, anyway, South End, and then the subsequent development would come in and pay for it. Now, I realize these are development-constrained areas, but whether still we could pay back by accumulated SDCs from other projects, because clearly this is even though these are constrained areas, I presume it's still an issue of dealing with impacts.
A couple things. These projects, because there are built-out basins, they all vary a little bit, but it's about 30% that can be funded through SDCs, because most of it's not growth-based needs. So we can't use a lot in regards to SDCs. They're mostly rate-funded projects. The other thing that of an idea that you mentioned is actually there's an item on tonight's agenda about with regard to a project that is going on out near the Settlers Point pump station, where the Settlers Point pump station has got some capacity concerns related to future development out there. And tonight we're asking you to approve a development agreement that does just that. It gets out in front of that. So we didn't list that as a moratorium area. Instead, we pursued a developer agreement. Because we have a moratorium doesn't prohibit us from doing something similar if there were a developer that was ready to go and wanting to put forth that kind of funding for a project like that. So that's still an option and something that we would consider.
And just so the commission is also aware, Mayor, in the situation where the holdup on making the repairs is the front money, I think that's a really, that situation is one where the suggestion you made is a really ripe application. I think here, what's taking the time is for us to do the design and bid process. It's not the money per se that's going to hold us up. It's the time it takes to get the designs in the ground and get them out there so that we can start making the construction improvements.
Okay.
So I guess my point is that whether we had all the money up front or whether we had to go collect it over the next couple of years, it's still going to be 2016 before we can really start making the repairs. Because it's the design work that has to go into it.
The other thing is once we get the moratorium areas fixed, I'll tell you right now, there is the other side of that, which is how do you reduce those flows? Because we can't just continue to build these pipelines bigger. We need to move into those basins, evaluate where that infiltration and inflow is coming from, and then bring forth construction projects that fix those. And they're not necessarily... they're not the same thing as what we're talking about for the moratorium areas, but once, we're going to focus all our effort on the moratorium areas for the first couple of years here. And then after that, and probably even during those years, we're going to want to have detailed analysis of where to focus that money in years 3, 4, and 5 to really start getting aggressive with reduction of I&I. And that's kind of where we're at. So you pass a bond, you might be able to spread that out, but it just detracts from what I&I reduction is not inexpensive either, so we need to be aggressive about that.
Just a couple of questions map related now. We're talking about 4 or 5 areas, and now we're talking about 4, and that's because Settlers Point has been pulled off that list. Is that correct?
Right, Settlers Point and that basin has been pulled
and
off.
I presume, we got maps that show 2 big green areas, and there's a total of 7 subsections. That's just because that's the way the neighborhoods are defined in that area, are by those boundaries, right?
Those boundaries are basin boundaries. So the drainage, there's no nexus between the neighborhood boundary, for instance. It's more based on the drainage basin boundary, And
then I'll come back to the question that brings back. We say 4 areas. You show 7 subbasins, but I presume some of those have the same common problem. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
The Brown and Caldwell report deals with all of 12th Street together, even though we've identified them as northwest, southwest, and northeast. So that's one line that is defined in 3 areas.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we're counting the bottom stream bottleneck, or the downstream bottleneck as the 4. There are different segments of that.
Sub-basins in there, okay. Any other questions?
I just have one thing. I did read the letter from the Home Builders Association. I wish I would know what their suggestions were. They said they had some suggestions, just to kind of have more information on that.
And our plan is to continue to reach out to them to figure out what those are. If they're concrete suggestions, it'd be great to hear from them. And so we're open to that. So we'll let you know how that works out. Assuming they're not here. I'm not sure if they're here tonight. Are they? Okay.
We'll invite you to speak if you want to. Thank you. In fact, we'll get your name on the list now because we do have one person up for comments. So go ahead and get your name up here to our city recorder, if you would. So are we ready to take assistant comments? And I have Barb Streeter. Hi, Barb. All right. I won't ask you how you are because this is frustrating for you.
Yes, I am frustrated. Thank you. Barb Streeter, 545 Holmes Lane. And I'm frustrated from what I'm hearing tonight because my perception as a citizen paying sewer and water fees is that my infrastructure is taken care of consistently. And I feel right now like the Comcast continual customer who gets very little for a lot of money, and the new customers come in and get the entire package for a pip of what I get. And it's just because I've read items such as they handed us a memo from 2010 when we talked about actually planning something for our property, and it specifically says that there are sewer flow issues And one of the reasons our area is zoned R2 is to allow developers to recover the cost of making the required sewer improvement upgrades necessary to serve this area through higher density zoning. And if they knew that in 2010, why is it now 2014 and we're still at ground zero? I would like to say I'm recognizing that there's nothing that's going to stop this moratorium from me at this point. It's going to continue forward for the benefit of the entire city. I will say I have two concerns. My first concern is that it affects a very small amount of the population. And I'm worried that will make it become easier to push aside for higher priorities because there are so few people affected. The second concern I have is they're asking you to enact a moratorium without having the master plan approved or the fee structure that they're considering approved. And if either of those fail, what's the backup plan? Those are my concerns. As I said, I'm pretty sure I don't have hope for anything at this moment, but I did want you to see that there is a face that's being affected by this moratorium, and to know that it's not just land, it affects people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to make any comment at all, Steph, or not?
Other than, it's our intent to, and I think, there is some validity to the fact that if it'd be great to adopt the master plan, adopt the moratorium, and then adopt the rates. It's just it's not working out that way. A lot's got to do with noticing requirements to adopt those documents and the amount of public hearing that goes along with those. And in the interim, we still know we have a problem. Yep. So We've also heard about concerns about implementing even a policy on how to deal with these without having an adopted moratorium. So we're trying to get through this and push these things through as the meeting schedules and noticing requirements allow. But we're very motivated, and I think what I've heard from the City Commission is, they're very motivated to see this moratorium problem resolved. So, and we've shared that with Barb and others.
Mayor, just one more thing.
I'm going to have to ask you to come up to catch it.
I do have one other concern. I think this master plan did not require citizen involvement. It was something that occurred from Public Works. I did ask if they had open forums or anything, and they said there was a open house in June. And that they thought they notified people through the neighborhood associations. And our property is not claimed by either Rivercrest or Berkeley Hills Neighborhood Association, so we don't get notices from that group.
Why are you not with either one?
I don't know.
That doesn't make sense to me.
We get no notices from either, so just so you know.
You should be Berkeley Hills.
Anyway, I'd like to see more citizen involvement. And I'm mad at myself for letting it get this far without being aware of what was occurring. But I don't think there was a lot of citizen involvement up front. And I'm sure that's not one of your committees that people jump to the forefront for is sewer. So thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.
If I may
Yes.
follow up, if we don't get the master plan adopted in 60 days, we have to come back and get another moratorium in 60 days. So we are truly under a corrective program has to be adopted to comply with the state law.
I'm going to ask a question on Barb's point. Why aren't these notices sent out directly to the residents as opposed through the neighborhood associations, or was that or did it happen that way? I would think these kinds of notices would go to every resident in the sub-basin as opposed to necessarily going through the neighborhood associations.
Yeah, I don't know if Tony can help me out here, but then the master plan itself, there will be, like I said, that's still got to go through Planning Commission and City Commission. I don't remember the notices. I know there's DLCD notice, but postcard notices. Do you recall on this? It's adoption to the, it's basically an amendment to our comp plan.
So it's a case of the notices are going out as we do the master planning, as opposed to some notices
No,
occurring.
I don't think we do. We don't do Measure 56 notice for this to all the property owners.
Okay, so notices simply don't go out for this.
For the sanitary sewer master plan update.
They will for the. That's
They
what
will
I.
not.
They will not.
They will
So we
not.
publicize it as much as we can through paper and public noticing.
Yeah, and
Not a lot of people
There-
worried about sewer.
well, I mean, sewer is an interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm asking.
Well, and you also recall that, I mean, I've been here a little over 4 years, and I know we've had, I think, 2 or 3 pretty severe sewer
Yeah.
backups in
Yeah.
people's homes.
Yes.
And so the commission was tasked with dealing with that kind of reaction as well. And that's a really strong problem that we have just due to our age of our pipe system and the topography in the city. So we're challenged anyway, but you wanted to solve that problem, and that's what you're doing. And I think the commission is brave for taking that on, because there's not a cheap solution to that kind of thing.
Nope.
Kathy, I'll go John Clure first too, from the Home Builders Association. Come forward. Then we can ask questions again.
Mayor Neely, members of the commission, my name is John Clore. I'm the Government and Political Relations Coordinator for the Home Builders Association of Metro Portland, and I am not a resident of Oregon City. I'm happy to answer your questions.
I'm wondering if there's anything you would want to summarize in your report that you want to present here.
Well, I believe to Commissioner Pauly's question about the suggestions we have, we at the Home Builders Association were first made aware of the sanitary sewer moratorium last Monday, July 28th. I am not an engineer, nor am I an expert in public facilities infrastructure, but we do have staff with those capabilities. And what I'm here tonight to ask is for the opportunity for our staff to continue to work with city staff before any decision is made to pass a moratorium.
And there is some truth to the noticing piece with the Home Builders Association. There was full intent to send them a notice, even though that wasn't a requirement. Didn't happen. So, but we have talked to the Home Builders Association. We're, again, still with the moratorium. I think if the solutions are to, on solution, I mean, if their suggestions are about solutions to how we might fix the problems that we have, we're open to those, and we'll continue to meet with the Home Builders Association on that. But we still feel like the moratorium meets the requirements of the OIR. The engineer's report that was included in there addressed a lot of the concerns of that. Is it the OIR or the ORS?
ORS.
Of the ORS. So we feel like we've done legally all that we can to move the moratorium forward.
Well, and more importantly, a delay in the moratorium probably means a delay in the fixes.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what I mean, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if I were a home builder, that I would be much more concerned about how quickly you're going to get this fixed than whether or not you can punt for the next 30 days till we, if we have a delay. Because we know we have the problem. And working with the home builders isn't going to reveal the problem, but I think they might be really helpful to us in looking at solutions. And I think that's a wonderful offer, and we appreciate it.
The other thing is that we just confirmed Alita is in the audience, who's done a lion's share of the work on this particular topic, and she confirmed that all the property owners that were in the moratorium area were provided with the Measures 56 notice, which is the little yellow cards that we typically send out.
I was going to say, I thought I got one.
And so when those go out, the idea is to get people to public meetings to do that. Now, having an open house was something else that we did. Not much in the way of attendance. That's pretty typical of a sewer master plan. Sewer master plans are a little different than, say, a transportation system master plan. There's, the analysis that goes into those is different. It's not like it's neighborhood input would be more along the lines of which fixes should happen first. And again, we think we can continue to work on trying to get that kind of input, but we're focused on getting it done pretty quickly. So again, that's what we think the neighborhood input.
I think most people can visualize transportation on streets more than they can transportation on sewer lines.
Right.
So, yeah. Commissioner Roth.
I'm asking this question because I'm concerned that the moratorium will take us out of a very promising recovery market at this point. And so my question is, what is the point of passing the moratorium now as opposed to waiting for the master plan to be developed?
Carrie?
The reason why is because we can't, under our comprehensive plan and our zoning code, grant land use permits when we know the sewer doesn't meet our standards. And so right now, we have a policy in place not to approve or to condition land use approvals and not issue building permits in these areas. The concern is that if we don't go through the process of adopting a formal moratorium, we are in what's called a de facto moratorium. And the state law doesn't allow you to stay in de facto moratoria land for very long. And so we need to go, that's why we're having this process to formalize it and to acknowledge that we have these limitations in terms of time. So that our feet are to the fire to make the corrections.
Okay.
If we don't adopt it and we stay with these policies that are denying building permits today without going through the process, there is legal risk of somebody coming and saying, well, you never went through the process.
I think the other, and I appreciate the legal answer to that, but when it comes to overflows, what we've just recently kind of gone through with the Parish Road pump station overflow, if that were to happen again and the city hadn't taken these drastic steps, I believe DEQ would rule quite a bit differently if we have an overflow in the future. So I think it helps to protect us somewhat from future fines with DEQ if we have an overflow.
Thank you.
My suggestion is if somebody put forward a motion for first reading and declaring an emergency, so we can go into the second reading tonight, so we can move a little bit faster in the process. If you don't feel that's appropriate, you could somebody could go ahead and vote no on the first reading and declaring an emergency. Then we can go into a regular first reading.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly.
In order to go to a second reading, we have to declare an emergency on the first reading.
Right. I unfortunately do believe that this is what we're going to have to do. And it's not something that I ever wanted to deal with in my time, a moratorium, but we're going to have to do this. And I know that you're going to work with the Home Builders Association. The Home Builders Association is going to work with us. And I know citizens were not possibly noticed as much as they could have been. So that is unfortunate. But I am going to move to approve 14-440 ordinance number 14-1006 and declaring this an emergency.
I'll
And
second.
I assume that you need to say something.
I will read it by title only. Ordinance number 14-1006, an ordinance declaring a 6-month moratorium on land development and building and sewer permit approvals in certain areas within the city of Oregon City due to a lack of sanitary sewer system capacity and declaring an emergency.
The vote, please. Passes unanimously. Now we can go ahead and have a second reading motion.
Move to adopt second reading and final
Adoption.
adoption. Oh, where am I go?
Ordinance number 14-1006, an ordinance declaring a 6-month moratorium on land development and building and sewer permit approvals in certain areas within the city of Oregon City due to a lack of sanitary sewer system capacity and declaring an emergency.
And again, a unanimous vote. we're moving, I guess, as fast as we're going to be able to move it at this point. Thank you very much
Right,
for your
well-
report. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's very helpful.
It is not something anybody up here wanted to do.
Oh, thank you.
But
Thank
we
you.
don't want to have citizens having sewer backup problems either.
And just the notice piece, just, I think we did do a lot. We've had a lot of public meetings on this, other than the Home Builders Association letter, which I think, that was a mistake on our part. But other than that, we put a lot of energy into trying to keep people informed about
I
this.
know, and every time staff does, I know there are a few that slip through the cracks. And maybe it just ends up in their recycle bucket, I don't know.
Okay, the next item is a proposed annexation 5.5 acres at 19588 South McCord Road.
I'll go ahead and read the quasi-judicial procedures if you are ready. Public hearing on a Type 4 annexation is scheduled for tonight. Staff report has been prepared and has been made available to the public 7 days before tonight's hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to the applicant's proposal. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Commission will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon Municipal Code. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of this application, and the matter is now before the City Commission for final consideration. As such, the City Commission's review is on the record, and only issues raised before the Planning Commission may be raised tonight. Anyone who wishes to speak in this appeal should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name and whether you reside or have a business within the city. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria and again must have been raised before the Planning Commission for consideration tonight. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, you must identify and discuss those criteria and explain why you believe they apply to the application under consideration.
Is there a point we could declare ex parte contact on this?
I'm not there yet.
Oh, you're not there. Okay, very good.
She will let us know.
So we can go ahead with the staff report before we do that.
No, I'm
Oh,
gonna
you're
finish
still
this.
going.
and then
Oh, I'm sorry. You paused, and you almost never pause.
Sorry.
You paused and you messed us up.
It's a little different in this case because the only person who testified before the Planning Commission was the applicant. So all of this business about the record being open, the record is open, but the issues I think are so limited that I'm kind of wondering
Sure.
as I'm reading about whether or not we really need this because the really only issues that are preserved are the ones that were raised by the applicant. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open. Any written materials mailed to the city staff during the time period at which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. This includes PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in oral testimony. If the City Commission makes a decision to which you disagree, any issues that you may wish to appeal must have been raised before the Commission's consideration without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond. The issue will not be adjudged appealable to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, Oregon Revised Statute 197796 requires us to announce that the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Now we will open the record for Oregon City file number PC14-090, proposed annexation of 5.5 acres at 19588 South McCord Road. Does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare? Has any commissioner visited the site?
Not, I mean, I know where the site is, but not associated with this. No.
Okay. We will now commence with the staff report.
Thank you. Pete Walter, Associate Planner. The Planning Commission is recommending approval of this annexation. It's 5.5 acres of land that has been in our urban growth boundary since 1979. So it has a designation of Future Urban 10. It's located here on the map at the intersection of McCord Road and sorry, Leland Road. It is contiguous to the city limit. It is contiguous to the existing subdivision Pavilion Park. There's no development proposed at this time. It has sewer, water, and storm sewer connections directly available to it from the existing subdivisions in the city. And it has a comprehensive plan designation of low-density residential. As with all annexations, this one is required to be approved by the voters following city's approval, and would receive a default rezoning to the city's low-density residential zoning designation R10 within 60 days of voter approval of annexation, which requires a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. This is an aerial photograph with the existing development layout superimposed on it. Zoning and land use, on one side of it to the south is county subdivisions within the UGB. As I mentioned, Pavilion Park subdivision, which is zoned R6 directly to the north, and another portion of that same subdivision, which is zoned R3.5 to the northeast. Sanitary sewer lines are 8-inch, and they are stubbed to the property in these locations: Joseph Way, Villard Place, Ross Street, and Anita Place. As well as that, there's a 12-inch storm line in each of those streets, and an 8-inch water line stubbed to the property. So in terms of future development, it is a relatively efficient process for any future developer to make those connections to city public services. As far as the districts that currently serve the properties and what they would change to, water would be changing from Clackamas River Water to the city. Storm would change from the county to the city. The sewer district would become Tri-Cities Sewer District. The fire district will not change. The school district will not change. And the county currently serves the area with their enhanced law enforcement, and that would change to Oregon City Police Department. Parks in this location include Wesley Lynn, 500 feet to the north. Hillendale and Filbert Run Park are within about a mile. Transportation impacts were evaluated with concurrence with the transportation system plan. They're assuming a low-density R10 zone, and they reviewed that proposal and found it was consistent with the assumptions for the TSP. And if a subdivision is submitted in the future, an additional development TIA, transportation impact analysis, would be required. The red dots on this map indicate the location of the schools that would be available to serve the site, including the Clackamas Community College. So criteria for annexation are, there are 7 factors: adequacy of access, conformity with the comprehensive plan, availability and adequacy of public facilities and services, compliance with state law and metro law. Any identification of natural hazards needs to be done during the annexation process, and any potential impact on designated open space, scenic, historic, or natural resource areas due to urbanization of the property, and lack of significant effects on those items. In our staff report, we evaluated those and made recommendations. We did not find that there were any problems or adverse impacts due to this annexation. The site is well served by public facilities and sewer, and there are no natural areas that would be affected on the site. It's not within a natural resource overlay district, and it is not within a steep slope overlay. And Planning Commission voted to approve this annexation. Staff's recommending that the City Commission adopt our staff report and our proposed findings, reasons for decision, and recommendations in the back of that staff report. We have a bifurcated process now where we adopt the staff report and during the public hearing, and following that, under general business, the item would be sent forward to the voters as a separate item. So that's what we've prepared under the separate resolution as under general business. But we're asking you to adopt our staff report right now. If you have any questions.
We asked questions prior to opening the public hearing, which probably won't be any public hearing, but you mentioned, I think for clarification, I think I know something, but I think we need to share it.
Sure.
We have annexations that have come in from master planned areas, and they come in actually at that time with a urban zoning. These lands didn't go through a master planning process, and this FU10 is kind of a holding zone for urban development. It is not intended to be the actual zone that is adopted by the city. That doesn't mean it's going to be R10. So these didn't go through a master planning process, so the zoning occurs after annexation as opposed to the master planning process we have currently. Is that correct?
Correct. It's an older part of the urban growth boundary.
Right.
There is an agreement with the county for these areas under the older urban growth management agreements.
Now, the second question I had to do with the overlays. Did we have any streams or other wetlands that were delineated? You mentioned those steep slopes. Were there wetlands delineated here?
No, not on this site. If in the course of a subdivision review anything shows up that meets the criteria for a wetland or a steep slope that needs additional review, then that would be the time to do it. But based on our inventories and our LiDAR data mapping and the other overlays that the county and the city both have, we haven't found anything on this site. So,
any other questions before we open the public hearing?
This is not in the sewer.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. This is not one of the areas affected by the moratorium.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask that every time.
Right.
I want it in the record.
Well, I will open the public hearing. Hearing.
No, you got somebody.
Do I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question. My guess is I know who it is, but this will probably be a planning commission member. No, it isn't. Dave Bantz, and is this going to be testimony that we can accept?
I think this is the.
I'm guessing he's the applicant.
Oh, yes, we should have the applicant first. I reject my opening of the, well, that's part of the public hearing, I guess.
It is.
It is,
The procedure we usually follow is the applicant goes
yes,
first.
that's right. Applicant, I'm sorry.
My name is David Vance. I'm with AKS Engineering, and I don't live in the city, but I actually do work here 5 hours a week for 6 months of the year. I'm a vendor at the farmer's market. And my second job. I don't have anything to add. I'm just here for answering questions if you have any of me. We appreciate the work that the staff has done and for their recommendation of approval.
Any questions? I guess now would be appropriate for public testimony, but you feel there was no public testimony offered before?
I don't think it's restricted to who may participate. It's the issues that they may raise. So if somebody had signed up and wished to testify about something that David talked about at the planning commission meeting, that would be permitted.
So anybody in the public? We have nobody signed up at this point. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And it's a case of whether we're going to go ahead and propose this for a ballot measure.
Move to approve PC 14-090.
And we'll be referring this to legal voters of Oregon City in
Second.
terms of approving. Okay.
I think this isn't the resolution.
No.
This is just
Oh,
the
we
land
skipped
use.
down.
Oh, did I do it wrong?
No, you made the right motion.
Oh, okay.
You're moving to approve PC 14-090.
Yeah.
The land use component.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then you made
My
a
fault.
motion, and then Commissioner Smith seconded, but the political component
Right.
of putting on the ballot
Yes,
will be
it's a
next.
separate, yeah,
Would be
sorry.
next,
Okay,
yes.
very good. And that's unanimous? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we go to,
Except Jerry got 5 yeses up there. That's not the water.
the ballot title piece, which
So
is,
say I will move to put
Fruits and vegetables.
Resolution 14468, number 1418, a resolution regarding annexation proposal AN 1401 and referring to the legal voters of Oregon City the question of approving annexation proposal AN 1401.
Second. Oh.
yeah. Okay, vote please. Unanimous approval. This will be on which ballot, the November
Yes.
ballot? Okay, very good. And thank you very much. And the next is, yes? Okay. The next is a contract for owner's representative of project management services for the renovation and expansion of the Oregon City Library. And I presume that's Maureen.
That is me, yes. So good evening, commissioners. So tonight I have for you
It's
the...
an imposter.
Pardon?
It's an imposter.
Oh, stop.
Don't you love it?
My evil twin is here tonight to ask you for approval of the contract. This is the second in the series of 3 professional consultants that we're hiring. You've already approved the contractor. And because that was under a time deadline, we worked on that first. And so now we're getting the project manager, and next meeting will be the architect's contract. And so I recommend approval of this big contract, which is for $285,000, which is for the entire work that they will render to us for the building project, for the library renovation project.
Ooh, I want to do that one.
Second.
You guys are way ahead of me here.
Okay.
Say the motion.
I want to do that isn't good enough. I'd like to move that we, the contract for owner's representative and project management services for the renovation and expansion of the Oregon City Library be moved.
It's been
Second.
moved by Commissioner Mum and seconded by Commissioner, excuse me, the other way around. Moved by Commissioner Roth and seconded by Commissioner Mum.
Yay.
Who's missing?
Do you want to
we
vote?
did.
I third it.
Oh, you third it. Okay.
Okay, very good. Okay.
That was like quick.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Thank you very much.
And now we're coming to the Settlers Point Pump Station and Leland Road Water Pipe Improvements Agreement between the City of Oregon City and Ryan Park Development, and I presume that's back in Public Works' hand.
That's right. Thank you again for taking the time for this item. It's regarding the Settlers Point Pump Station and the Leland Road Water Pipe Improvements Agreement between the City of Oregon City and Ryan Park Development. Staff is recommending approval of the development agreement between the city and Ryan Park. Ryan Park is the owner of approximately 6.8 acres out off, not far from where that annexation was actually, but it's further out off Leland Road. The development is actually approved for 6,000 square foot residential lots. And in January, the city issued a land use application approval for a 35-lot subdivision called Lindsay Ann Estates with conditions of approval. And the land use approval requires a couple things for both water and wastewater. For water, we're requiring the developer to extend a 12-inch water line across the frontage of his property on Leland Road. Also, the water line's inside the development, but we're talking about some of the off-site water line improvements. So that water line is larger than what is our standard, so that because it's part of our main trunk distribution system. It's also a project that's listed on our water master plan, and it's also a project that's listed on our SDC reimbursement list. So we budget for reimbursements for a small amount of money for reimbursements for these kind of projects. So part of this agreement is agreeing to pay the developer additional funding for the upsizing from 8 to 12 inch. So that's one piece of this. The other is the sanitary sewer, and this is somewhat related to what we talked about before, where we have a pump station that's under capacity, and in order to get it to capacity, there's more design work that needs to go in that. We've actually already done the study work with using one of our regular consultants to review the pump station and its current status, and they provided us an estimate of a project that's somewhere in that $300,000 range. So we want to move that ahead forward. We didn't want to include it in the moratorium. This area this is the area that had the most potential for development, and so we felt like, and we had a developer at the table who was ready to talk to us about their development and their willingness to help front some of the funding for that project. And so this gets us there. There's still work that the city does, but the developer provides a deposit to get that pump station work completed, including both design and construction, in the amount of $300,000. So we think that's a good approach, consistent with kind of just keep this city moving in the right direction. So we're asking you to approve this. We believe it's in the best interest of the city. We think there's some economic development interest associated with that. So Ryan Park will loan the city an estimated project cost for the pump station of $300,000, and we will then design and Ryan Park will also design and build the water line improvements. And then the city will repay Ryan Park in our next budget cycle and at that time we'll have completed the improvements for the pump station. They're $300,000, so it's really kind of a loan, if you will. It gets us through some, not that we have cash flow problems necessarily, but it's unbudgeted funding. So this kind of bridges that budget gap. There's also in the consent agenda a budget amendment as well that takes in the $300,000, allows us to spend the $300,000. So anyway, that'll happen. And then this also provides $41,285.40 for the upsizing of the water. So it's water and sewer basically is what we're agreeing to. There's other things in that agreement, but those are the biggies.
Is that legal for us to do? Okay.
It's innovative.
It is.
What are the terms? Do you have more specific questions than that? I've reviewed and revised the agreement, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, yes.
What are the terms of the agreement?
You mean the length of time?
The interest rate terms?
No, there is no. It's $300,000 now, paid by the developer, and he gets reimbursed the $300,000 later. So there's not an interest.
What's later?
It's in 2016. Budget year.
That's
2016.
innovative. I give you that. It's good.
I'm going to ask a question. There's 8-inch ductile iron pipe already there.
No,
that's not what it means.
This area is served by Clackamas River water right now, and I think it's a 6-inch cast iron leaky pipeline. So, so it'll be a 12-inch that would. We're still working with CRW on transition from their pipe to ours. But
is the 8-inch intended to be CRWs, or is it just a basic?
Our standard is 8-inch. So inside the subdivision and all the streets that are in on all the distribution inside that subdivision, those will all they'll all meet our standard, which is an 8-inch pipeline. Okay. So the difference that we're reimbursing this developer for is the difference between the 8-inch and the 12-inch.
But there is an 8-inch already there, or there is?
There is not. No, there is not.
Yeah. I guess I'm just confused of if there's not 8-inch there, the 12-inch total cost would be $90. Why doesn't the developer get $90 if he's putting in the 12-inch?
Because he would, at a minimum, be required to build the 8-inch. So it's basically saying you've got to build a water line there. He's saying I'm ready to build a water line, but your standard is an 8-inch. We're saying, but we want a 12-inch, and by the way, it's in our master plan to be a 12-inch, and it's also in our SDC. Project list. So those two things are what trigger our our ability to reimburse them using water
So
estimates.
normally he would be taking the cost anyway of the 8-inch.
Right.
Right.
And
right.
we're requiring him to do the 12-inch,
Yes,
so
sir.
it's a differential.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
I understand that.
So that's all I have
No,
to present.
anybody else needs to speak to this or not?
The applicant's here, but he wasn't
Okay.
planning to speak.
It looks like Commissioner Roth is on.
No, I was asking the audience, but any questions for the commission too? That was the intent.
No.
We have a motion? And you got to state your motion?
Move to approve 14-439 Settlers Point Pump Station and Leland Road Water Pipe Improvements Agreement between the City of Oregon City and Ryan Park Development, Inc.
Motion made by Carol Pauley and seconded by Betty Mum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's hope everything else goes that fast. Executive leave policy.
Oh, we get to hear from Jim.
Yeah.
Yay.
Everything.
I know, not very often at all.
I never get that kind of reception.
We hear from you all the time.
Tony, you want to be part of this? Tony, you want to be with the HR department?
My guess is we don't want to hear from any other staff except you and maybe David Frazier on this particular one.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I bring before you this evening the draft executive leave policy, or it's personnel policy, and it's a draft. Typically, the Commission doesn't get involved in personnel policies, but because this policy is, in fact, it will be a benefit change if it's approved, and there is, albeit a small, or could be a small financial impact associated with it. I need Commissioner approval. What?
Get your red button.
Sure, your microphone's on. I didn't turn it on. Okay. Anyway, a small financial impact prior, I need commission approval prior to implementing. So the intent of the policy is to partially compensate executive team members for some of the extra hours that we spend attending meetings, commission meetings, work sessions, etc. And also to recognize those extra hours with a low-cost form of compensation. When the idea of the executive leave policy came up, I researched 13 comparable cities in the metro Willamette Valley, from largest being Hillsborough, the smallest being Forest Grove. And they all, of those, I received responses back from 10 of them, so 13, I got 10 back. And of the 10 municipalities I got back, 8 of which, so roughly 80% of those 10 have an administrative leave policy for management employees. Some of them had policies that included additional compensation, such as 401A or deferred compensation payments. So the administrative leave policies that I reviewed were specifically designed to recognize that management employees are exempt under the Fair Labor Standard Act, the FLSA, which defines the 40-hour work week. I know this is a lot of HR-isms here, but that's what I'm dealing with. So,
you're doing a good job there.
Thanks. So and also anything in excess of the 40-hour work week for non-exempt employees is considered overtime, or for public employees they're eligible for comp time. And also, it also recognizes that for the exempt employees, the overtime that we incur, so to speak, is not typically an hour-for-hour exchange. At least the administrative leave policies that I reviewed was not a one-for-one exchange. It was just a sampling, six days. The most was 2 weeks. That was the most. So the expectation of management employees is that since we are exempt from the FLSA, we receive a salary commensurate with our job duties, and we work until the work is done. If we get our job done in 30 hours, great. Then we're probably underclassified. If we get our job done in 60 hours, that's unfortunate, but that's what it takes. So however long it takes to get the job done
is what it means. There's no overtime because we are exempt. Unlike of course, the represented staff who do get eligible, who are eligible for overtime. So the city recorder did provide some background as far as the number of hours that we typically spend in meetings. Currently we've already been here about 5.5 hours.
But who's counting?
And that doesn't include, the time in between the end of the day and the start of the first meeting. So that's another hour or two as well. So what Nancy came up with was approximately, at least for commission, urban renewal, and work sessions, about roughly 11 to 14 extra work days per year. So that's a fair amount. We have used a flex time program, where a flex being that if we run over, say we have a 5-hour meeting, the executive team may be able to use some or all of that time in the same work week or the same pay period. However, that's not working. In other words, most, if any executive team member rarely gets a 5-hour. It's not an hour-for-hour exchange. We may get a couple hours to flex in a week, like on a Friday afternoon or something. But it's not a 1-for-hour exchange.
I think I'm going to start calling meetings at 4 o'clock on Friday. Have you come?
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Uh-huh.
So flex time alone has not been enough, and we're still typically responding to emergent emails and phone calls when we're either on vacation or when we're supposed to be off work. And so this policy is we're asking for 4 hours of executive leave per month. That includes executive sessions this evening. Like I said, we've already been here about 5.5 hours. So, not that I would try to compare Oregon City with West Lynn, but actually that 4 hours per month, I did use them as a comparable, and they do have an admin leave policy for their executive and team, and theirs is 4 hours per month. So ours would be the same as West Lynn's. And I believe the policy before you addresses a work-life balance issue, and to help compensate executive employees who tend to work in excess of 40 hours a week. So that's my presentation. I'm subject to any questions. That's right. Oh, sorry.
There you go. Commissioner Smith?
I think this is really important, and I strongly support it. And I would just ask that I assume there's some way that we have a procedure in place to track this for the first year, to kind of, so we have an idea of how it's being used, what the budget impact is, and all of that, and then.
That would go into our Eden system, just like any other current leave time that's accumulated. We're not exactly sure what we're going to call it, whatever Eden lets us call it, I guess, on the pay stub. But we're capping this at they can't accumulate any more than 12 hours, or I'm sorry, 12 days. And once it gets to 12 days, it's a use it or lose it.
Right.
We do have people here that run up against vacation limits of, I think it's a limit of 360. Once you hit that limit, it's a use it or lose it. Some people actually forfeit that sometimes. But we're going to cap that so we don't have liability at a later date.
Great.
Commissioner Roth.
Well, I have some different kinds of concerns because I believe everybody on this commission can relate to being exempt or self-employed or whatever it is. So I think when you are an exempt employee or self-employed, you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And so I don't think to compare it to union represented people or non-exempt people is a point that I take too lightly. And like I said earlier, my concern is double payment for some services. To me, you either do flex time or you do executive pay. You don't do both. So I want to know, how do we track flex time?
Well, that's a very reasonable question, Commissioner Roth. We currently, as I mentioned, the executive team works in excess of 40 hours a week. We are available by phone and email as necessary. even with all the meetings we attend, it's well in excess of 40 hours to stay within, to meet our departmental responsibilities. The city manager, for the executive team, the city manager monitors the flex time for the executive staff. And the department directors monitor the flex time for their supervisors when they do use it. Since we've had the flex time when we've had the flex time procedure, we've only had a couple of supervisors who we felt were abusing it, and I was called in to help counsel the manager to make sure that they weren't doing it. But we currently work until we get the job done.
Yeah, that's not my point. My point is, do you track flex time? So I'm assuming that nobody clocks in and out.
No one clocks in and out. Since we're management employees, we only count whole day absences because since we're exempt from overtime, there's no point to counting partial day absences. So we only count the whole day absences, and so for an hour here or an hour there, that isn't recorded. So if someone goes to, say, a dentist appointment or whatever, they come back, or as long as they.
But I am notified. They notify me my reports. These people in this room that report to me, they notify me and ask if they can be excused for this reason or that reason. So it's not something that they're just out there willy-nilly doing.
Yeah. Okay. Just for your, I'm going to vote for this, but I just want it on the record that
Sure.
I do have some concerns. Okay.
And Kathy was kind enough to talk to me this afternoon about this, and I appreciate it. It's a great question. It's also one of those questions that, when I went to work for the Court of Appeals, when I was a police officer, you literally tracked, I don't know if our guys have to do this still, there's probably electronic ways of doing it, but literally fill out a log sheet, and every single minute of every day, lunch, bathroom breaks, every single minute of your time that day, I bet your dad went through this, was tracked on a log sheet. And then when I went to the Court of Appeals in Alaska, the judge said, look, I need 2 publishable quality memos at the end of the month, and that's all I need. I don't care if I even see you. I need those memos. And I was kind of not used to that because I was used to, essentially, it's like punching a time clock. You show up for inspection, you line up, you turn your car in at the end of the night, you turn in all the reports. So basically what you're asking about, I think it's such a great question because if you don't punch a time clock, it's very, very difficult to track. So I have people that work here for us that I trust, and they maintain that trust by notifying me. I've got people here that unfortunately some of them are compulsive workaholics, and I'm trying to force them to take some time off because I have concerns as a manager about burnout issues of some of our folks, and I catch them repeatedly, as you probably do me sometimes, emailing, doing city business on a vacation, on a weekend, at midnight. Sorry, Nancy, I do that to her often. Those things happen, and we have a really dedicated team, and I just want to keep them that way, and I want to treat them fairly. But I'm watching that, and they do notify me when they're going to be gone for more than an hour. So.
Thank you.
And also, the majority of the executive team have leave balances in excess of 200 hours. So that's, it's a fair amount of leave that they have only because we work.
I'm on next, and I was just going to say there's been several instances, particularly from planning and public works, where I put in an email on a weekend expecting an email reply on a Monday and get it in that weekend. I've seen email responses coming to me before 6 a.m. in the morning. I believe Denise Kai has responded to me out of hours too on some of the things that have come through. And it seems to me that what's being requested of us is primarily things that bring them here to the meetings in which actually our city manager has required them to be here. I mean, we've got. Although he's working on other things, we've got Scott Archer there, and he's able to double task, and he looks up when he hears his name and so forth. That actually are having no presentations today. Eric Underwood, you had something to say today, but you basically require them to be at these meetings, I suppose, because if an issue comes up or something. The reason I'm saying that is because I don't think that was true of previous city managers. We just had the executive team that had items on the agenda. And that's a fundamental change that has come under your administration. I want to mention that.
You know, I know cities that don't do that, and there are almost always consequences. I'm not going to bring that up. There's another example, but there are almost always consequences. I think we are, for the size of our city, we're probably at minimum 50 positions fewer than the average city in the United States for the size of our population. But we are providing the same full service levels. And I think part of the reason we get so much accomplished for such a small engine, if you will, is because of the dedication of all of our employees. Union, frontline, it doesn't matter. But that comes from the leadership of the executive team, and I also believe that helps a great deal with the teamwork that they feel with you. They're here, they're listening, they're watching you deal with sometimes very strong emotions like we saw tonight. And I think that helps our team buy in to the goals and priorities the commission sets. It keeps them, I think, in better touch with each other, with you, and with our citizens. So I want them to want to keep coming and being part of this process.
I'm going to put a test. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Mung. Go ahead first.
I agree what was said here tonight. I do think we have a great dedicated exec team. My question is, when nobody in this room is sitting in these chairs, does this continue, and can it be abused?
Can it be abused? Well, I guess the first question, when no one's sitting in the chairs, in other words, when
all of you guys retire and we're not here, and we have a whole different staff.
Well, policies can always change. They can always. So if it becomes an abuse, then it's either my successor or the city manager's successor to take that and say, no, this isn't working. We need to change it.
Okay.
So anything can, any policy can be changed. As a matter of fact, I've got a whole bunch of policies.
Because I'm always thinking about 20, 30 years from now, what is this going to look like?
Sure.
I guess the answer to the question is we can give it, and the next commission can take it away.
Well, yeah, you're right, I guess. I just wanted to know.
And frankly, if your manager isn't managing, that's part of my job, is to make sure it isn't abused. And if it is, I address it.
Yeah,
and
but
if you have a manager,
you.
I know, but my point is, if that manager isn't doing that, then whoever he's reporting to up there needs to take him to the woodshed. And I would expect he would go there readily.
So I'm going to test my email theory here. I'm going to send in an email this evening, putting forward the question whether the hairstyle of the librarian fits into the librarian's dress code.
Oh my gosh!
But I don't expect an answer.
I move to approve.
My gosh!
I'm sure she could comment on your hairstyle.
I'm so sorry.
I move to approve 14-3-114 or 314 executive leave policy.
I second. Oh, I wasn't quick enough.
I'm waiting for something to come up. Has it?
Yeah.
There
it goes. There we go.
I'm like, wait a minute here.
Yeah, we already voted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we were at the consent agenda, are we not? Yeah.
Yes. Move
there a
to
motion?
approve consent.
Well, I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Boy, that's the fastest vote I've ever seen.
No, I've seen it faster.
Yeah.
We'll go to communication, starting with the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, gosh, there's a lot of good things happening on the Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
Yes.
The partners meeting was a couple of weeks ago, and there was more unity coming out of that meeting. I know that Commissioner Pauly was there, Mayor Neely was there, I was there, along with Tony and many of our staff. And I saw coalescence around this plan from the county, from the state officials that were there, and from Metro. We're sort of used to that with our relationship with Metro, but sometimes the other partners have different priorities, and it was just really great to be part of that meeting. I think, Doug, you would probably agree that was probably the most positive meeting that we'd ever experienced on the project, and that carried through because just a couple of days after that, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners approved the Willamette Falls Legacy Project MOU, and that will be coming in front of you at the your next commission meeting. for approval, and then it will also, I think, around the same time, it's going to end up going to Metro. So all the partners will be all in at that point. More news on Willamette Falls Legacy Project. The land use application has been submitted. Public hearings are going to begin on that in September.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
about that? I'm very confused. We got the email about it being quasi-judicial and we're no longer allowed to talk to people. I didn't think that that's the way we were going to go with that.
That's the land use application. What we're talking about here is the memorandum of understanding between the partners.
Oh, I thought you had moved on.
Well, I have moved on to I guess we're not tracking with you, but I've moved on to, yes, reporting that the application has been signed and that process has started.
Okay.
Tony, did you have any edification?
So early on, we had I think we had a attorney's memo presented outlining the differences between a legislative
Right.
land use action and a quasi-judicial land use action. And because this is limited to one property owner, it seemed to fit more into a quasi-judicial decision rather than a legislative, which is usually something that we do over multiple properties, over large acreage that affect multiple property owners.
Okay, my question is, isn't it the commission's decision to make that decision?
No, it's a legal decision.
Okay. So who made that?
Our office made a recommendation.
They
that
made a
we process.
recommendation.
We made a recommendation that we process this as quasi-judicial. And quasi-judicial carries with it more procedural protections than a legislative decision. So if the legal counsel was wrong about that, going with the quasi-judicial course is the more conservative course. Legislative is more political, doesn't carry with it the ex parte contact requirements. So we erred on the side of caution, decided it was quasi-judicial, and made that recommendation.
Okay, my concern is our responsibility is to our constituents.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, we've got a gag order.
You don't have a gag order at all. What we haven't asked you not to engage in these discussions. We've asked you to track them. The obligation under state law is to track these engagements and disclose them at the public hearing.
Right, but one of the emails we got from Christina said to refer, if we get questions, to refer them to staff rather than we attempting to answer.
You get questions directed particular to the master plan. We have encouraged you to encourage these folks to come to the hearing, and that is the public forum to discuss them. But if they are general questions about Willamette Falls, you're certainly free to talk about them, talk about the issues. And I mean, sometimes those are going to be hard to distinguish. That's why we've asked you to track it.
Right. So is there a better, I'm not real clear on this whole process of what I can say and what I can't say. And I don't want to do something wrong, but I'm feeling like I've got a gag order.
Well, but what I'm telling you is, even if you, let's say you had a hour-long discussion about the details of the master plan at an event. Mm-hmm. You go home, you send Christina an email. Christina, tonight I had an hour-long discussion with this neighborhood about this project. Christina logs it, we come to the hearing, Christina goes through, you had an hour-long discussion, and then people know you had that discussion, and they're able to ask you more detailed questions about that to find out what you learned or what you shared.
Absolutely.
Or how they can respond. I mean, that's why this is a public process. What we're trying to do is make it as transparent as possible. And that's why we decided it was quasi-judicial.
So if somebody asks you to come talk about the project,
Mm-hmm.
you could certainly do that. What you'd really kind of want to avoid is, I love this project so much, I don't care what I hear, I'm going to approve it. Obviously, then you have a bias, So I mean,
Right.
and that's an extreme example. But you're able to talk about the project in general. We're just asking you to track it so that we can let folks know that it's not a gag order. You just don't put yourself into positions of appearing to present biased in positions on the application without hearing all the testimony or making some
It's a
statement.
great question. Thank you for bringing it up so we could clarify it. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns about it? Okay.
A follow-up issue was raised about discussions with staff. And staff is, discussions with staff is expressly exempt from the ex parte disclosure rule. So you don't have to log discussions with staff.
Okay.
So if you get, for example, technical questions or questions about process, we're living this stuff every day. We don't expect you to remember all those minute details. So if you get a question and you want to ask staff to respond to it, you can either ask us to respond or you can forward that person directly to us, and we'll get a response. Because ultimately, I know you just want them to have the information, and that we can be a conduit for you in that regard.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. Well, gosh, let's see here. I have one more thing. Willamette Falls Legacy Project has also, the partners team has submitted an application, a pre-application for a meeting for a $100,000 Clackamas County Tourism Development Grant for the design and engineering of the Riverwalk. Of course, we know that that design and engineering is going to be in the millions, but every little bit helps. And so I wanted you guys to know that the partners are working on that grant application together. And then the next thing I have is somewhat related to this. A few weeks ago, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, Commissioner Smith and I and Scott Archer were asked to talk to Dan Fowler about an aerial skyway project that was conceived for part up on the hilltop at some point. Some of you, I think, probably know about that or have heard about it. He approached us about this and wanted to know, I think more or less, does the commission want to include this in their master plan? Mr. Conkle and I had some concerns about that because, well, first of all, it isn't specifically in your commission goals, but I think it was timely. It was just a little bit late because, frankly, we're so far along. We've got our master plan completed. We're pretty far into this process. I don't think that approving the master plan going forward with the land use necessarily forecloses some installation like that or even a conversation about it at a later date. But I'm a little bit concerned that you could lose your momentum for approvals on, because that's a pretty significant change. The property owner isn't really aware of that. We haven't been talking to our partners about it either. And I think at the staff level there hasn't been much discussion, serious discussion at least, about it. But since Mr. Fowler brought it to my attention, I got another email from him this afternoon asking about that. So I wanted to make sure the commission was comfortable with what we had done so far and didn't want to take that up as a separate issue or part of this. So the study's available. It's was it about 7 years old? I think there was some sort of study work done,
maybe more. But
and we have copies of it if any of you want to review it. And again, this is not something I view as in a vacuum. It can always be, if the site looks like it's going to benefit from that later, and the usage is there, and there's, you know, my issue when we brought this up in our meeting was when you have a tram going to point A and point B. You need something on both ends of the barbell to interest people. And right now we just have something on one end at the falls, but we don't necessarily have something on the other end. And I think that would be important if you're really going to make that kind of thing pencil.
I can have the dogs up there.
Are they going to buy tickets?
No, they could be the interest point at the end.
Oh, okay.
I would never ride it.
I don't think that won't produce a basis for conveyance, I don't think.
Okay. So it's sort of community development night tonight. I have some good news to report about our service levels. The Community Development Office, as you know, cut back its hours about a year and a half ago, I think it was. And we're pleased to announce tonight that Community Development is going to have new hours from 8:30 to 3:30, and that is the counter. So you're going to be back basically to full service at the counter. So, you know, we were down to 4 days.
5 days a week instead of
5 days a week.
5 days a week. Yeah.
That's good news.
So that's back up, and that's a good thing. Let's see. And then last but not least, I'm going to be on vacation next week and taking my little daughter to Lauwa Lake. She loves the water, and we're going to go over there and let her splash till her heart's content. And I will. Scott Archer is going to be the acting city manager next week while I'm gone. So that's all I have.
He's going to be doing more than acting.
Yes. Oh, and this letter, I believe, Mayor, is your report. It's not mine.
Right.
Yes. Thank you.
So it's my turn. On June 11th, 2014, the Clackamas Board of Commissioners filed a lawsuit against the Oregon City, challenging our right-of-way fee. The Citizens News publication of Clackamas County listed reasons why they were challenging it. We have drafted a response. I put out an initial draft that was dramatically edited by legal counsel. But for specific reasons, we're in a process. We are responding to the specific suit before us, and so we want to make sure to deal with responses in an orderly fashion. In any case, we do have a response that we'll be putting out in response to that Citizens News report. And you want to announce a date when we're having a hearing at this point or not? On the suit itself.
Public record, it's August 18th.
Yeah, just so the audience knows, August 18th. We feel that the court at which the suit was, it's not court venue, it's court.
Mayor, I probably wouldn't go into the arguments.
Okay. Well, okay.
But there is a motion to dismiss filed, and there's a hearing on the motion on the
Very
18th
good.
in Clackamas.
In any case, we've developed a response to the news article, and we'll be getting that response out. Another item, I think.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
Has the commission all had an opportunity to review the letter?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things we wanted to make sure of is that the commissioners all agreed with the contents of the letter, and that you fully supported and endorsed the mayor transmitting that on behalf of the entire commission. So I don't think it takes a motion, but I did want to check in and make sure that
Yes.
that's how you all
Okay,
felt.
thank you. Another thing, I think everybody knows that there's a Clackamas Community College is putting out a bond measure for $90 million on the November ballot. The commission can actually do a resolution in support of this. It cannot involve staff at all. I will be writing the resolution. And what I was going to do, I prepared, and this has been approved by the Secretary of State's office. I've prepared a letter that will be in the Trail News describing the what the issues are and so forth. So what I'd like to do is pass this before you, and this will probably largely the basis of a proclamation that I'll be drafting. I'll get the draft of the proclamation to you before we actually approve it. So if you all take a look at that between now and by the time I've actually drafted a resolution. And you don't have to read it now, but I'd like you to get back to me on that. We have, as I think we mentioned before, we have two vacated positions on the Natural Resource Committee. We now also have a vacated position on the Budget Committee. The latter isn't so critical because the Budget Committee will not meet until next year, but we want to get the word out there. We have these openings. I don't know of any other vacancies that are there. So I'll move to my extreme left. There might be a follow-up I might make based on somebody else's report. So I'll start my extreme left. Do you have anything you would like to report out?
Yes, I'll put my Main Street hat on. We had the first city celebration, and it was a great success. More heritage was incorporated this year with the coin toss. And we have a new marketing and promotions director down on Main Street. Her name is Jessica. So you'll hear more about that later. And National Night Out was fun. I got to dunk the mayor. That was a highlight.
The first one she drew, hit the first throw, she hit the target. The second one, she aimed it at me. Fortunately, there was a fence between, so it got deflected.
It was really great to see the community out and to see the responses to the visioning process of the public safety facility. It was a great turnout, great weather, and just a nice space to be in. That's all I have.
Commissioner
The only thing I have to talk about is the pamphlet that I gave to David that I would like to see us work on, and that's an emergency operations booklet for public officials.
I'm wondering if the fire district doesn't already have a version of this.
I'll bet they probably.
But I'm gonna ask Jim if he can check into that and see if
Yeah,
we
this
have
would
one
be
of
more
these.
specific to our city procedures rather than the
Right,
fire.
but this is excellent.
Mhm.
Excellent document.
So that's, and again, National Night Out last night was really fun, and it took all I could do not to activate the mechanism on the back of the chair to talk Doug.
Doug or Rocky.
Yes, actually, I didn't mention that activity, but I was getting pretty cold and numb after 2 hours, and of course, when Commissioner Smith came in and came to my rescue. We both received injuries in the process. Commissioner Mum.
The only thing I have is the mayor, myself, and the chief and David Frazier met with My Father's Heart Ministry. And I think it's a conversation we'll continue to have. And National Night Out was great. I've heard nothing but great comments.
Great for you, maybe.
That was great. It was great for me. And did VCT donate? Were they donating their services?
I think
Yeah.
The food?
Tons of hot dogs.
Oh,
800 is what Dick Orr mentioned at the chamber event today.
Yeah.
800, they produced 800 hot dogs. I ate 2 of them. But.
The cost to the city's been it's been just a couple $100. The community,
Yeah.
to throw something like that we sponsor, that
Yes.
the community comes out, we're going to spend a little more next year.
Yeah. The only other thing I have is Clackamas County Fair begins August 12th.
That's right. Mr. Smith.
I will be making corn dogs on opening day, and will be judging the talent show on closing day of the county fair, so that should be fun. I wanted to say I did attend a couple meetings. I was at the Clackamas County meeting for the MOU for the Willamette Falls project, and some of the discussion was exactly how I imagined it being, and the outcome was great. I was very surprised, actually, about how much support is there from the county for this project, and they had a lot of questions and concerns about the amount of money coming in the future, and whether or not the county can continue to fund various parts or any. But so that was the main portion of the discussion. But it was nice to hear most of the commissioners. Commissioner Savas is the only one who abstained, and he has concerns about the future spending, I think, and questions about that. But the individual commissioners throughout that discussion, which was fairly lengthy, were very supportive and very much conveying the unity of the partnership, and so I was really glad to see that. We had a Heritage Coordinating Committee meeting tonight, and before all of our other meetings tonight, and Jonathan was there from Main Street to talk about First City Festival, and with the Heritage Group that did a lot of the heritage components of the festival, and kind of talked about how that went. National Night Out was amazing. It was really fun. So I want to thank everyone for that. I love going to that event, and it just keeps getting bigger.
It does.
Talked to tons of people, and my preschool teacher, my kindergarten teacher,
Your teacher Sherry, right?
Teacher Sherry,
Yeah.
her first year. So I saw my kindergarten teacher, my preschool teacher, my 6th grade teacher. I grew up on Donald Street, which is the street right behind Mount Pleasant School, and there was several neighbors who still live on Donald Street who were there looking at the plans for the police department, and I had a great time talking with them. Because they live there, and they've lived there their whole life, and what do they think about it? Everyone was excited. there was, a couple concerns, about the building and things like that, but primarily everyone was so excited about it. And I was really happy to hear that and talk to people about it. The dunk tank, the mayor was in there. He looked so sad.
Abused.
Sad. I had a booth at National Night Out, but as I was packing my car full of tables and chairs and various other things, I threw in a towel because I figured at some point I was probably going to get roped into it. And so
You volunteered.
well, I knew that it was going to happen.
I wasn't going to ask.
Some volunteers from the booth, I think they felt sorry for you. They came over and they said, "Rocky, if the mayor needs a break, are you willing to do that?" I said, "I knew this was going to happen. Yes, I'm prepared for that." And so I go over to the booth and I checked on the mayor, who was yelling at kids, small children.
I was yelling at everybody.
He was yelling at everybody. And I asked him if he needed a break, and he said, "No, the sign says dunk the mayor, so I'm staying up here, go away," basically. And I said, okay, so I left. And then later on, I was asked to go and fill in towards the end of the night. And one of the volunteers at the booth said, well, I'm just going to change the sign because the mayor was saying Rocky can't go up there because it says dunk the mayor. So she made a thing that said dunk the future mayor, and I said, you cannot put that. And she said, she was kind of laughing. I said, no, seriously, there's people filing to run for mayor. People think that I'm running for mayor. I can't run for mayor. So take that off. So she did, and the signs went down, and it was just Dunk Rocky, which wasn't, I don't think, as popular as Dunk the Mayor. But I tried my best, and hopefully they made some money for OC Together, which is a organization that we all think is very important in Oregon City, and so it was cool. It was fun.
Thank you for coming to my rescue. I was just getting. I was tired of going in the tank every time and saying, "You rotten kids."
I was telling people, as a teacher, I've done. It's not up there on the list of the worst things I volunteered for, but it's. I've done donkey basketball. I've done mechanical bulls. I've done all these crazy things, and most of which I've hurt myself on, including the dunk tank last night. But if I have to do it again, I'm prepared for. By the end of the evening, I knew what I was doing, and I wasn't getting hurt, so it worked out.
Commissioner Ryan.
I had one more thing to say. The Sister City people from Tatashina will be here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
August 18th through 21st, and they're sending 7 delegates over. 2 of them will be staying with me. One of them is their counterpart to the commission. And then there will be an interpreter.
Oh, nice!
Because he does not speak English.
Now, will there be students this time?
There will be no students.
Oh, I see. Okay.
No.
Kathy, if you need another host, I'll volunteer.
Oh, that'd be great.
You don't live in Oregon City.
That's okay.
It's close.
And they're
It's only
very
8 miles.
excited about touring. Nancy's been arranging a tour for them at the Blue Heron site.
Oh,
great.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I was going to say, depending on how the conversation went, Kathy Roth had, and I know she spoke to the mayor about it. She had spoke to me before. Spoke to the city manager about it before she spoke to me about it. And the same thing happened to me on one of the things. She was at the Two Rivers. Is that the name of the Two Rivers neighborhood associations, and 3 potential development projects came up in the discussion that were at some point, I think, through a process in the city, and she knew nothing about them. That very weekend, I was in Home Depot, and one of the employees came forward and said, well, what's going on over here on Home Depot land? And I couldn't answer the question. Particularly, I think, when it comes to commercial and industrial development in the city, if we could just have a list of things that are coming forward, so when we get asked a question, I don't know. It doesn't sound too good for us. And I know you talked to the city manager about that before, but I've had now the same experience. So I don't know how you develop it. It's not no intent on our part to get involved in the application process, just to know where things are and what they are. So
he reported on the Friday highlights. There was a nice list of things.
Yeah.
And I was going to go to that neighborhood association meeting, and I went on the website and couldn't find the location. It still had
River
TBA. Well, I know now, but it said TBA. It did not say that there was a. It did not say the location.
Where are
and
they
that
meeting?
was the day of.
River Shore.
That was the day of. I went on the website.
Okay. Any other for the good of the order?